Good morning, everybody. It's 9:30. It's time for the inquiry to resume. We're going to start very shortly. I'm going to ask Mr. Parker to ask any questions he has of Mr. Lonergan. I've just got a couple of things I want to mention first. I'm not going to go through a lot of procedural matters, but I think after lunch we'll just have a brief chat about the programme for next week. Secondly, I think yesterday you provided an update, Mr. Cameron or Mr. Henderson, on statements of common ground. Could you just give us an update as to where we've got to with those, please?
Yes, sir, very happy to do so. The one with the City Council and the District Council is being signed and printed essentially right now. There's been a few minor tweaks overnight, but I hope to be able to give that to you, if not before lunch, then certainly before you go home at the end of today.
Thank you.
With Clare Hall, we've reviewed that and that will be going back to them hopefully this morning, and ditto to the CPPF one. The CPPF one I expect we'll be able to sign later today, because we've not changed their text. We've added some amendments to our text, so it should be relatively straightforward to get that signed later on. But if not today, then as I said yesterday, over to you before we resume on Tuesday.
Thank you very much for that update, Mr. Henderson. When we finish today, my understanding is that we'll need to take everything out of the room because it'll be used for other things. I think there might be some possibility of storage of some things which Mrs. Taplin has organised. I'm assuming the applicant's team, you have got your own arrangements, have you, or maybe you don't?
I think if there is storage available generally, we might take advantage of it as well.
Okay. Well, in that case, if you could have a word with Mrs. Taplin, and we'll see what we can do. Finally, somebody mentioned to me earlier this morning that I think today was going to be unreasonably warm, and I was about to say something along the lines of please don't hesitate to take your jacket off if you're getting too hot, but I also asked Mrs. Taplin to put the air conditioning on, so I think the opposite is probably the case. If you need to put a coat on to keep yourself warm with the air conditioning, please don't wait for me to either put on or take off my jacket. Thank you very much. Is there anything pressing anybody wants to mention before I invite Mr. Parker to take Mr. Lonergan through cross-examination? No. Okay, in that case, Mr. Parker.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Lonergan. I want to start by asking you some questions about the access and maintenance track. And just by way of background, although these are not matters for you, just to understand the context for the questions that I'm going to ask you, it's obvious, isn't it, that the inclusion of the access and maintenance track increases the amount of land that's required by way of the scheme, including by way of CPO. Yes. That's right, isn't it? Oh, excuse me. And obviously you understand that CPPF have concerns about the environmental effects of the busway, including the access track and the amount of land that needs to be CPO'd, including from them, to facilitate that. So that's one of their central concerns. And so the inspectors will need to decide, among many other things, whether there is a compelling case in the public interest for the applicant to compulsorily purchase the land, not only for the busway, but specifically for the access and maintenance track. Yeah? Yes. That's fair, isn't it? And so the dispute between us is whether there is in fact a need for the track, and therefore whether the applicant can demonstrate a compelling case in the public interest to justify its compulsory purchase. Yes. Yeah, and you're happy that that's the context in which the technical issues, as it were, that you address in the inquiry, that's the context for those technical issues, yeah? Okay. Please, can you take out your rebuttal proof? Which very usefully, if I may say so, Mr. Lonergan, includes reference to the concerns raised by CPPF in respect of the inclusion of the maintenance track and then provides your response to it. So it's rebuttal proof, PDF page 5, section 3.2. And in a sense, these 2 pages encapsulate the dispute between us that the inspectors will need to determine. But I just want to ask you a few questions about your response to what Mr. Littlewood says. So, the first point you make, which is at paragraph 3.2.2a little 1 on page 6, is that the track will enable maintenance teams to access the scheme for various purposes. So access for maintenance. Now, in your examination in chief, you referred to some guidance at CD 904, and I'd just like you to just take up that guidance, please.
CD 904.
Yes.
Thank you.
So this is the guided busway design handbook.
Oh, sorry.
Just tell me when you've got that document open, and then I'll tell you where I want to go.
Yes, I'm open.
That's great. So if you go to PDF page 28, which is internal 26, I don't know which is easier for you. Hold on a minute, that's not sorry. No, it's... Oh, sorry, no, it's 26 in my version, I apologise, sorry. Dodgy reference. And there's paragraph 7.2. I think this is guidance that you referred to. Is it? Oh,
26.
And 28 in the PDF, I think.
yeah, so, okay. Paragraph 7.2. Perhaps that's an easier way to go about it. Have you got that, Miss Lonergan?
Yes.
And I think this is guidance that you referred to. And I may have misunderstood this, but as I understood it, you were suggesting that maintenance on the busway would need to be carried out using special vehicles if there were not a maintenance track available. Is that a correct understanding of your evidence?
It's correct. It's also correct that it would vehicles would have to go on the actual busway itself to deliver the vehicles to carry out the maintenance.
Okay. Well,
So sorry.
go on.
So, for instance, if we were going to clean out the gullies or do up the fences or cut the grass, we could deliver the equipment for doing that from the maintenance track,
Okay.
rather than along the busway without disrupting the
Yeah,
bus service.
I understand that, but I just want to understand if there weren't a maintenance track, what your position is in terms of how the maintenance would be carried out, because you suggested that special vehicles would be needed and so on. But as I understood it, this guidance and the requirement for special maintenance vehicles only applies to schemes which are curb guided. It wouldn't apply in the case of this scheme where the scheme is optically guided.
We use it because it refers to optically guided within the document. I agree it was originally set up for curb guided, but the principles are the same except for the curb.
Okay, so why would you need, if this is to all intents and purposes, you said in the examination in chief, this is to all intents and purposes a normal road, and it essentially uses the same technology as would be in a normal car to keep you within your lane, why would you need any kind of specialist maintenance vehicle to maintain the road?
They wouldn't be specialists, but they would still be routed along the busway.
Right. Well, that's okay. Well, that was my understanding.
Yeah.
So we can agree that there's no need for any kind of specialist vehicle to maintain the busway, given that it is optically guided.
Yes.
Now, as I understand what you're saying, your position is obviously not that it would be physically impossible to maintain the busway and the associated infrastructure using the busway itself.
No, but it would have a severe impact on the service and then the usage of the service.
Yeah. So it would be possible to maintain the busway.
Possible to
using
maintain the
busway.
busway, but not the service. It would interrupt the service to the
Busway
passengers.
Subject to disruption to services.
Yes. Which would then discourage people from using it.
Yeah, okay. We will now, you've said that this is yeah, okay. So, and just to, I just want to be absolutely clear. I think it's clear from your previous. There's no safety issue about maintaining the busway from the busway. There may be a safety issue if you were not to implement appropriate traffic management measures within the busway, but there's no inherent reason why the busway couldn't be maintained safely.
It could, but it wouldn't be as safe because there'd be more vehicles on it, and there would need to be protection for those vehicles, which wouldn't be needed if the maintenance vehicles are coming in and the people are coming in from the maintenance track.
Yeah, but that all goes to disruption to the service, doesn't it?
I think it affects safety as well if we put obstructions with other vehicles on the busway.
Okay, but I mean,
the same way that putting a lane closure on a road makes it less safe, even though it's done to all the regulations.
Yeah, fair enough. But obviously, it is the case up and down the country that roads are maintained safely without the need for an access and maintenance track.
Yes.
I mean, you cannot possibly be suggesting that there is a compelling case in the public interest on safety grounds for requiring a maintenance track, given the fact that roads are maintained safely from within the highway up and down the country. That in and of itself cannot possibly provide the justification.
It's not so much the safety as it's the service, and it's the interruption to the service.
Yeah, we'll come on to that, but that's why I just want to take everything in turn. So you don't say that safety concerns about maintenance justify the delivery of a maintenance track?
They're not the primary one. The primary one is maintaining it, and actually reducing the number of vehicles and the maintenance vehicles on it will increase safety or reduce hazard.
Okay. So let's turn to what you describe as the sort of primary reason then, where the maintenance can be carried out without unreasonably disrupting the operation of the busway. I think that's essentially what you're saying. Now, by comparison with other roads up and down the country, it's right, isn't it, that the number of vehicles using the busway is going to be relatively low?
Yes.
I mean, very low indeed. How many buses are likely to be travelling in any direction?
Well, the plan was 10 to 12 an hour in each direction.
10 to 12 per hour in each.
That's what's in the documents.
So that's, my maths is not very good, but about 1 per 6 minutes.
Yes. And that's the issue with having something on the busway interrupting it.
Yeah, well, let's actually explore to what extent that concern is valid. I mean, let's say there was a requirement, for example, for some kind of maintenance along the busway. So I think you referred to maintenance of drainage, mowing the lawns, that kind of thing. I mean, it would be very straightforward, wouldn't it, to simply close one lane of the busway for that short period of the road where that maintenance was taking place, wouldn't it?
It would be. It's certainly possible, but then it would disrupt the flow of the buses and it would disrupt the interval between them.
Yeah,
which is the whole aim of the scheme.
Yeah. Well, let's actually and then consider to what extent there would actually be any disruption if you close one lane of the busway, because isn't it right that if you close one lane of the bus lane to do this maintenance, obviously buses would be able to use the other lane of the busway, and you would be able to set up some kind of temporary traffic light system, or I don't know whether on the busway you could use some other system. But the likelihood given that one bus is coming in each direction every 5 minutes, of two buses intercepting each other on the short period of road that you were maintaining is in and of itself very low, isn't it?
I don't think it is, in the same way that most of the time when you drive on the road, someone tends to turn up in the other direction when you don't want them. And the buses won't be exactly 6 minutes apart.
Okay.
There'll be some changes because of there's traffic lights where they cross roads and they cross interchanges.
No,
So we will aim to have them 6 minutes apart.
even if they're not 6 minutes apart, you've got 10 to 12 buses coming in each direction every hour. The likelihood that two buses, so I mean that is going to be, you know, an interception every 5 minutes, is that right? So each bus will intercept one other at 5 minutes intervals. For the sake of argument, I appreciate that the intervals may vary between them, but for the sake of argument, you're maintaining a short section of road, and you can obviously move the lane closure along the road while you maintain it. The likelihood that those two buses intercept at the precise moment of the lane closure, it is relatively low. I mean, I don't see how you can suggest it's not relatively low, Mr. Lonergan.
I agree. It's certainly medium if it's not low.
Okay, medium if not low. Fine, I'll take that. Now, let's say, worst case scenario then, two buses intercept at the precise point where there is the traffic intervention. The delay to the service caused at that point is the length of time that it will take the bus coming in the other direction to pass through the single lane section of the busway, isn't it?
Yes, and then the other one to accelerate back up afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at worst, you know, we're talking about tens of seconds delay to that bus service, aren't we?
We're certainly talking low minutes at most.
Well, I mean, when you say low minutes, I mean, can you envisage a situation in which a bus which has to wait for another passing, and bear in mind your buses are going to be running at the speed they're running at, I don't know whether they'd have to slow down in this particular location, but look,
Depends.
it's not going to take any more than 2 minutes,
No.
is it? A very maximum of 2 minutes, and probably less than 1 minute. Is that fair?
Yes. I suppose it depends on how much maintenance is going on, but for each item, yes.
Yeah. So, what you're saying is that this disruption to service, which justifies the delivery of a maintenance track, we're talking about probably less than a minute of delay for one bus.
Or for each bus as it
For
goes
each
past,
bus
I suppose,
that
for 12 an hour.
for each bus that
or
goes
24
past.
an hour, yeah.
For each bus that goes past. That's in your professional judgment, that means that disruption is of such significance as to justify the delivery of to make the maintenance track necessary.
It's part of the reason for having it.
So you wouldn't say this factor in and of itself would justify.
I put all four. Yeah.
No.
I put this together with the emergency and the other ones.
Now, the next point you make is about utilities, and I think to a certain extent the same point arises. What you say, but let me explore it with you. What you say is that the maintenance track enables you to put the utilities under the maintenance track, so they're not under the busway, and therefore facilitates easier maintenance, access, and all the rest of it.
And less disruption to the maintenance,
to
the busway. Yeah.
Yeah, less disruption to the busway. I mean, there's no physical reason why the utilities have to be located under the maintenance track, is there? I mean, they could be located in a duct alongside the busway without a maintenance track.
They could, but it's much easier to maintain them if they're next to the track, and we can use that.
So you say it's much easier, but no, yeah, they could, fine, possible. And let's say instead of putting them under the access and maintenance track, you put them under the busway or in the immediate vicinity of the busway so that they could be maintained from the busway itself, yeah?
Then we'd actually need to put traffic management onto the busway.
Yeah, but all of the same points about disruption and the significance of that disruption would apply to any maintenance activities that were required in relation to those utilities, yeah?
They would, but there's almost a higher level of control of the busway's own maintenance staff for the operations they're carrying out routinely than there is for the utilities.
So if I understand what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, the maintenance activities are likely to be less frequent than the routine maintenance that you're talking about. What was the last point that you were making?
Sorry, my point is that the utility contractors would be less experienced and less controlled than the busway's own maintenance staff who'd carry out the routine maintenance on the busway track. And you'll have more people coming in.
But so what? What's the significance of that?
It's just more disruptive in terms of vehicles and perhaps length of closure.
Okay, so you might need a slightly longer closure.
And more vehicles going in and out of it. Yeah.
Okay. More vehicles and so what,
more contractors.
But so what? Again, what's the consequence? You might need some more vehicles and more contractors.
It just disrupts the flow of the buses.
But why? The flow is controlled by the temporary traffic measure.
Yes, but if we put other vehicles in among the optically guided buses, we've got a variation of vehicles actually running on the bus route.
Oh, what you mean to get to the temporary traffic measure? But I mean, again, we've got one bus going along this thing in either direction every 5 minutes. It's perfectly feasible, isn't it, for a traffic management
I'm just thinking of the vehicles getting to and from it.
Just let me ask my question. It's perfectly feasible for a traffic management plan to be put into place, which ensures that any utilities vehicles which need to access maintenance arrangements on the busway could use the busway at a time when a bus isn't using it and cause no disruption whatsoever to bus services.
Certainly to minimise it and to get there safely, yes.
Yeah. And the next point you make is about you say it's a shared path for pedestrians and cyclists. I mean, the order can obviously only be made in respect of a busway and matters ancillary to a busway, and I'm not going to ask you about the sort of legal scope of the order. I'll deal with that in submissions. That's probably a relief for you and to me, Mr. Lonergan. But now, one of the concerns that CPF, or one of the points that CPPF makes, and I assume you've looked into it, but if you haven't, then just tell me and I'll stop asking questions about it, is that there is an alternative pedestrian and cycleway in the form of the Cambourne Greenway. Are you familiar with that?
I've seen the route of it as far as Coton. I haven't seen the far end of it. But the other point about having allowing the NMUs to use the maintenance track is it'll reduce the incursions on the track. So it'll reduce the number of cyclists or pedestrians who'd actually use it as a route. You'd use the busway as a route, and that was part of the experience of the other busway in Cambridge.
Yeah, I mean, but as I understand the concern there, the other busway in Cambridge, there was a pedestrian cycle path alongside, and the problem was that people nipped onto the busway rather than staying on the pedestrian cycleway.
Yes, so the idea is to provide this one that's wide enough that can be used.
But the situation here, if there weren't an access maintenance track, would be very different, because there wouldn't be a cycleway footway alongside the busway. It would just be the busway.
Yes.
And so any pedestrian or cyclist who was using the busway would know very well, because there would be clear signage and all the rest of it, to make clear that they weren't meant to be there.
It's not whether they know they're not meant to be there, it's whether they go there.
Sure, but it's a very different position from the previous busway, where what people were doing were legitimately using a cycleway, footway immediately adjacent to
Yeah.
the busway, and
Yes,
then if there was an obstacle, they were
we've learnt the
nipping into the lane.
lessons, yes.
That wouldn't be the situation that we'd be talking about here.
No,
it would
'cause
be
we've-
people who were on the busway who really shouldn't be there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the point about the incursions. It's the people who shouldn't be there.
Yeah, but you, again, it's the counterfactual, Mr. Long. You can't possibly be saying that the risk of an incursion, of someone ignoring signage, going somewhere where they shouldn't go, you cannot possibly be suggesting that that justifies
It's
the
part of it.
CPO for this track.
It's part of the benefit of having it.
Yeah, but there are so many other ways in which potential incursions from people who aren't meant to be on the busway could be controlled without the need for CPOing a large tract of land and sticking a load of tarmac
It's
on it.
quite difficult, actually, with the junctions onto the existing highways to stop anyone coming on.
Okay, well, it's done with train lines, it's done with all sorts of infrastructure, it's done with all sorts of manner of
Yeah,
different
but
land uses
along
where
a train,
people are
along a
made
train
aw-
line.
Let me ask a question. Where people are made aware that they are not meant to go somewhere, and if they do go somewhere, they are acting against the rules, as it were.
Yes, but walking along a railway line is rather different to walking along an asphalt busway.
Okay. Now, just in terms of the Cambourne Greenway, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the part of the Cambourne Greenway, not busway, Cambourne Greenway, part of it's being delivered, but included on the council's walking and infrastructure cycle plan, I've got that name wrong again, is an indicative route for the Greenway all the way to Cambourne, yeah? Are you aware of that?
Yes, it seems to go through Coton. It's quite a long way, but
Yeah, it does go through Coton. The point I'm making, I think, to try and be fair to you, is that only part of the route to Cambourne has in fact been committed.
yeah.
But there is an indicative route that would take the route all the way to Cambourne.
Yes, but it'd be much quicker to walk along the busway than.
Well, I don't think it would actually. That's the point I want to put to you, Mr. Lonergan. That if the cycleway were delivered, the Cambourne Greenway, you would avoid Madingley Hill to get to Cambourne, so you wouldn't be going up a big hill, which is obviously a factor which would affect its attractiveness for cyclists. You aware of that?
I thought Madingley Hill was on the A1303. What do you mean?
Yes, but the busway still goes up the side of that
Oh, right,
hill.
the hill just in, north of Coton.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Greenway would avoid you having to go up that hill.
Yeah.
Yeah? You're aware of that?
Yes.
Yeah. And that you wouldn't be cycling alongside a busway, you'd be cycling through open countryside, which again would make the Cambourne Greenway a more attractive option for cyclists and pedestrians than cycling alongside the busway. You're aware of that? Would you accept that?
Yes.
That it would be a more attractive route for them?
I think cyclists tend to go the quickest way rather than the most attractive, but I'm not a cyclist.
Okay.
So it seems to me that they always
Well, I
find
am a cyclist, but
the quickest
I'm
way
not
made
sure
to be.
whether anecdotal evidence as to that is particularly helpful for the inspectors.
Well,
But,
no evidence from you, Mr. Parker.
no, so you're saying, if in fact it turns out, and I can ask Mr. Lee about this because he gives the detailed evidence about it, the Cambourne Greenway would be a quicker way of getting to Cambourne, then that would be yet another factor which would suggest that pedestrians and cyclists would use the Cambourne Greenway rather than the route alongside the busway.
Yes, I suppose it depends where they are, at which end, and what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm sure
Yes.
you could come up with a journey which was quicker alongside the busway. But if we're talking in general about journeys from Cambridge, the campus to Cambourne, in general,
There are multiple routes, yes, and they choose.
But what I'm putting to you is that people would be far more likely to use the Cambourne Greenway than the busway maintenance track. Yeah.
Go whichever's quickest. So.
Okay. Well, I'll ask Mr. Lee about
Yeah.
that. Now, the final factor that you refer to is emergency access. Now, again, in terms of emergency access, is there anything about a busway and the infrastructure of a busway which you say is different to an ordinary road in terms of the need for emergency access?
Again, it's really the impact on the service. It's clearing up whatever problems occur, and then it gives us an evacuation route So it doesn't impact the blue light vehicles going to the incident.
Yeah, okay, sure. Just answer my question, though. Is there anything physically different about the emergency requirements for a busway by comparison with an ordinary road?
No, it's just number of people on the number of passengers, I suppose. Otherwise, it's similar.
So again, I mean, obviously, ordinary roads, there are accidents which happen on ordinary roads, and emergency vehicles get to those accidents along the road itself. Yeah.
Yes.
But
there wouldn't
there'd be
be as many
nothing
buses.
different. Sorry, you wanted to qualify, yes?
I was just going to say, but there wouldn't be as many buses on an ordinary road.
Well, we're talking about 10 to 12 buses an hour. There are going to be far fewer vehicles on the busway than there would be on an ordinary road.
But as soon as there's an incident, they'll all come together, won't they? Until we've sorted everything out.
Yeah, okay. But in terms of emergency access, you're not suggesting that there's any reason why emergency vehicles couldn't access an incident on the busway, using the busway?
They could, but it depends upon how close they can get, because there'll be buses in both directions if there's an incident.
Again, come on, Mr. Lonergan, let's deal with reality.
Well, I would hope they'd pull over and let them pass, in the same way that everyone else would.
Exactly,
Yes.
Mr. Lonergan.
Yeah.
The buses are not going to.
Yeah.
Or to the extent that that was a concern, you could put in place a traffic management plan to ensure that buses position themselves upon being told of some kind of incident in a way to enable emergency access.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's not something which we need concern ourselves with. So is it right again that your concerns about emergency access boil down to potential disruption to the ordinary service of the buses if there were to be an accident?
Sorry to interrupt. Yes, it basically boils down to maintaining the benefits of the busway.
Yeah. Now, in terms of disruption, it obviously depends on the nature of the particular incident, right? But in terms of accidents along the busway, I mean, as I would understand it, given that this is a busway and there's only 10 vehicles going in either direction, you would predict that the possibility of a road traffic incident such as might occur on a road is very, very low indeed.
But the aim is it's lower than the probability on the road. Yes.
Yeah, because you're not going to be having conflict between vehicles in anything like the same way that you would on an ordinary road. Yeah?
And there's one sort of vehicle, yes.
Yeah. So the likelihood of a sort of road traffic accident, I don't know, there may be statistics on this kind of thing, but are very, very, very low indeed. Is that right?
Yes, they're low.
Yeah. So the type of incident that we're talking about, well, I mean, what sort of incidents are we talking about where you envisage that an emergency is going to happen, which is going to cause?
I suppose a collision between buses, for some reason.
Well, Mr. Lonergan, come on. We've just said that the likelihood of that happening is extremely low.
But it can still happen.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And there's
so
probably the
your
biggest chance at the actual junctions.
Yeah. So your position, Mr. Lonergan, is that this maintenance track is required to facilitate access to the busway to avoid disruption in the low likelihood event of two buses colliding into one another.
Or another incident, yes.
I mean, I've heard everything that you've said, Mr. Lonergan, and it's obviously a matter of judgment for the inspectors as to whether they are satisfied that there is a compelling case in the public interest to justify the CPO for this scheme. But I'm just going to put the point to you. I mean, nothing that you have said in your response to me can possibly justify the access and maintenance track as being necessary for the delivery of the busway, can it?
I think it's necessary for the delivery of the service, and to ensure we actually have the predictable and reliable and consistent service of the buses. Because otherwise all these things added together reduce the reliability of the service for the passengers.
Okay.
And the likelihood of people using the system.
Okay. Well, we'll have to leave that with the Inspector and Secretary of State. Obviously, CPPF takes a different view. Right, so let's turn and look at the CPPF alternative. Your approach to the CPPF alternative, as I understand it from your evidence and the way that you asked questions and the answers that you gave, is to assess that the material that CPPF has presented as though it were a final design for the scheme. Is that fair?
Partly that, and partly to be fair to them, to assess it as though we've assessed it to see whether it's a viable option. We accept that it's not a final three-dimensional design that's been carried out. It's a two-dimensional design that's been indicatively produced.
Yeah. Well, okay.
And it highlights some issues.
Sorry, no, I didn't. I thought you'd finished your answer. Sorry, you finished what you wanted to say.
I was just saying, and from that we can highlight some issues that prevent it from being viable.
Yeah.
Or need addressing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that caveat is important because that's not the way from your examination in chief that I had understood you to have appraised this scheme. I mean, you were asked, have you ever seen a scheme that has been designed in this way before? And you said no, you hadn't.
A lot of effort has gone in by civilistics to actually try and design and fit it in on a 2D basis. So it's a very early stage of design.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, but it just flushes out the constraints and shows that when we were carrying out the options assessment earlier on, that I think we were probably right to dismiss it as not viable.
Well, we're going to examine that in a little bit closer detail, Mr. Lonergan, through my questions. But as I understand it then, your focus has been to take the material that's being presented by CPPF and to identify why you say the alternative as presented in those documents is unacceptable.
Well, I think we did it both ways. We looked to see how it could be acceptable, and from that we found out what wasn't acceptable. So we assessed the design.
Okay. Well, we'll look to see the extent to which you've sought to identify whether the constraints that you've identified could be overcome.
Yeah.
Because, well, let's come and look at the documents, because that's the key question, isn't it, Mr. Lonergan? Because the scheme that's promoted, again, just by way of context for the evidence, just to make sure we're all on the same page about why this evidence matters, the scheme that's promoted by the GCP would obviously involve a significant amount of CPO, harm to the greenbelt, effects on veteran trees. You know, there's quite a long list of harms associated with the busway accepted by the applicant. It's a scheme which comes at a very significant financial cost in the order of £200 million, and it will take some time to deliver, right? But the applicant's position is, notwithstanding all those harms, the benefits of the scheme outweigh them.
Yes.
And that's the justification for the scheme. And the purpose of the CPPF alternative was to explore whether the benefits of the GCP scheme, such as they are, could be delivered in a less harmful, more cheaply, and more quickly. That's the function of the CPPF alternative, right?
Yes. It's the aim.
It's the aim. Yeah, I appreciate you don't accept that is the outcome of the process, but that's the purpose of it, right? So it's right, isn't it, when one is appraising the CPPF alternative, that one always has to have in mind that you're balancing it against the counterfactual. That's to say the harm, the acknowledged harm, which is accepted to be significant, is caused by the GCP scheme, yeah?
Yes, and conversely, in assessing the CPPF scheme, we should weigh the harm that's carried out to the American cemetery, to the SSI, and to the people and the other things along that road.
Yeah.
So nothing has pure benefits without any harms.
No, we're in a world of compromises, and we're going to look at some of those compromises in due course. As a matter of fact, the CPPF position for the inspector's note is that the scheme wouldn't cause any harm to the SSI or any harm to the significance of the American cemetery. You aware of that?
I am, but when we looked at it, we didn't come to the same conclusion.
Well, we'll look at the premise for that analysis in due course. But yeah. Now, I think we've touched on this, but just to make clear, I mean, you say you've never seen a road design like this, and Mr. Cameron, in his questions and opening, has referred to CPPF having produced revised versions
Yes.
of this alternative. Now, the purpose of the CPPF alternative is not to present the GCP, or indeed the inspectors, with a final and complete design, is it? I mean, I think in the second cabinet...
It isn't a final design, but it needs to be viable to be considered.
Yeah.
And looking at the number of departures that are required, it isn't viable.
Well, we'll look at that in due course. But that's right, isn't it? The purpose of the CPPF alternative is not to provide the inspectors with a final design, but to demonstrate, this is the aim, I appreciate you don't agree with it, but this is the aim, to demonstrate that it is feasible to build an in-road scheme so as to avoid the harm associated with a GCP scheme, which is both safe and delivers on the objectives set for the scheme, yeah?
Yes.
So it's no good, it's no answer to the CPPF alternative to say, well, this element of the design is unacceptable, unless you're able to say, and there is not an acceptable way in which my objection could be overcome.
And it's the cumulative effect of the departures as well as the individual effect, and that's the problem with overcoming them.
Sure, but answer to my question, that's right, isn't it? I mean, it's not enough for you to say, well, I've identified this objection with the CPPF alternative. What you need to be able to demonstrate is that I've identified a objection to the CPPF alternative which it is not feasible to overcome, or which could not be overcome in an acceptable way. Is that fair?
With a complete redesign of the CPPF scheme and accepting more damage either way within the fence lines, you could address things like the substandard lane widths. But
I'm
otherwise,
not asking about the content. I'm just, for the moment,
yeah. I don't think it's for us to redesign the CPPF scheme to resolve all the problems, and I don't believe they can be with the constraints that are there.
Yeah, you're talking about the content now. I'm just talking about the approach, right? The approach to the CPPF alternative. You have identified a number of objections.
Yes.
But we've agreed that the CPPF alternative is not a final design for a scheme, right? So the purpose of the CPPF alternative is to demonstrate that there is a feasible way in which this scheme could be delivered. So unless you're able to demonstrate that the objection that you have identified, in principle, and we'll come on and look at the content, don't worry, could not be overcome, if the objection that you've identified could be overcome in an acceptable way, then the scheme would be feasible, right?
Yes, if there's a way of overcoming it to make it viable.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah, okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Now, I just want to ask you just some questions about your day-to-day role, just because you were asked about them by Mr. Cameron. I just want to understand in a bit more detail. I mean, a large part of your evidence, you're expressing professional judgments on whether departures from standards would be granted by the local highway authority, the county highway authority, yeah?
Yes, so that's where we've ended up, yes.
Yeah. I think that is where we've ended up with, in terms of the CPF alternative, because that is your fundamental objection to the CPPF alternative, which is that the departures from standards wouldn't be permissible.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the process for applying for departures from standards as part of road design, is that part of your day-to-day role?
It isn't currently, but it is within the design teams. It has been before, but it isn't at the moment.
So when's your most recent experience of applying for departures from standards?
Oh, it'd probably 10 years ago. Since then, I've been working at the front end of schemes, but I've been working within teams that have been applying the departures for standards
Yeah, but I mean,
and looking at the constructability and how we fit it in within the road space,
yeah,
and then balancing things off.
yeah. But in terms of the, you know, a sense in terms of exercising judgments about whether or not departures are likely to be granted by the local highway authority, am I right in understanding that it's sort of 10 years since
Yes.
you've been doing that?
At least.
So I didn't hear what you...
I just said at least, but yeah.
10 years at
Yeah.
least.
But we do have a lot of people within the design teams who do it, and the evidence is on in the round. It covers a lot more than just departures.
So I want to move now to the DMRB, because we looked at this
Yep.
a little bit yesterday and you asked some questions about it. So if you can just take up CD 96, please. Which is the extract of the DMRB that you referred to, if you got it separately. It's the first chapter, I think, of the DMRB.
Hang on.
Introduction.
Sorry, so could you just give the reference CD?
96.
So I'm going to have to go the other way.
Tell me when you've opened it up.
Sorry, it's not cooperating at the moment. Yes. There.
Got it. Great. So PDF page 5, you were taken to this. And
Yeah.
are you sorry? Are you there, Mr. Lonergan?
I am. Is this GG 101 you're after, or which document?
Yes, I think it's well, yeah, I'm GT 101.
Mutual recognition is the top of the page.
Well, top of my PDF page 5 says introduction background. I don't know, does that accord with what other people have? Yeah. I think if you're accessing the document in another way than through the core documents, it may be that the numbering doesn't match up. I'm not sure.
I thought I was, but anyway, yep.
So
Yep, I'm there, yep.
yeah, I think it's internal page 4, if that helps.
Yes, yep, that's where I am, thank you.
So we see here, this was a question that Mr. Clegg asked, the inspector, and I just want to check. The DMRB is expressed to apply to motorways and all-purpose trunk roads. Yep. And if we go down to internal page 7 or PDF page 8, yeah, we see the definition of the term all-purpose trunk road. Tell me when you're there, Mr. Lonergan.
This is
in a box. Internal page 7.
I'm on internal page 7.
There's a heading terms and definitions.
Yes.
Yeah, got that. And we can see definition of all-purpose trunk roads there. I mean, is your position that the A1303 is an all-purpose trunk road within the meaning of the DMRB?
Yes. And
Well,
then within the Cambridge County Council guidance as well, yes.
well, we'll look at the guidance in a minute, but it's not an all-purpose trunk road within the meaning of the DMRB, Mr. Lonergan, that's wrong. It's not part of the SRN, it's not managed by National Highways.
It doesn't have to be managed by National Highways. It needs to be as long as it's part of the diversionary route.
Well, again, the fact that it's part of the diversion route, as I understand it, if you point me to some guidance which says otherwise, but the fact that it's part of a diversion route for the SRN doesn't mean that it's an all-purpose trunk road as defined by the DMRB.
Right.
I mean, I'm almost certain, far more familiar with these documents than me, and if you point me to some bit of the guidance which says that diversionary routes for the SRN are an all-purpose trunk road, then but
Okay.
are you able, I mean, is that...
I'll need to have a quick think about that, but yes.
All right,
Carry
well,
on
I'm not
with
going to take up
the-
time in the inquiry. I may
Yeah.
be wrong, but I don't understand that to be the case. But you refer, and we see here, to be fair to you, we see here, if you look at the overseeing organisation, note 2,
Yes.
yeah, don't think this is a part of the guidance that you refer to, but it helps your case, so I'm going to point it out as a matter of fairness. Where a local highway road authority decides to use the DMRB
Yes.
in whole or in part for part of its own highway network, the overseeing organisation is defined in in accordance with their own procedures. And you were taken by Mr. Cameron to the...
And that's the bit that I'm sitting on, yes. Yeah. Using, yes.
Okay, all right. Well, it may also be because by reference to its diversionary. If you're status, you can come back to me on that. But yeah, it's not in terms of the DMRB part of the all-purpose network, as I understand.
Sorry, was that a question?
No, it was probably a statement, but
Well,
if
can we-
Mr. Lonergan wants to
Surely,
respond to it, he
surely
can.
it's just the coverage by the DMRB that matters.
Well, we come on a look.
Well, actually, just on this, just for the avoidance of doubt, I'm looking at those definitions, Mr. Lonergan. That there's the motorway and all-purpose trunk roads, and then there's the overseeing organisation with the notes. Can you just clarify in terms of the answers you gave to Mr. Parker? Mr. Parker was asking, does it fall within that definition of motorway and all-purpose trunk road?
No, but well, only as far as the overseeing authority is the highway authority. For which one of the overseeing organisations is highway or road authority, and then, as Mr. Parker said, it's note 2, it's the local authority. So the DMRB covers it for that.
Thank you.
And then if we take up the guidance that you referred to, which is CD 736, I think. I just need to check that reference. Yeah, have you got that?
I'm just getting it. Sorry. Right. Yes, I'm there.
Yeah,
I'm at the wrong end of it. Yep.
Yeah, and you referred to page 7.
Yep.
And there's no dispute on the part of CPPF, as a matter of fact, that the A1303 is a strategic link between junctions, as defined in that guidance.
Yep.
So there's no difference between us there. But I just want to go back, PDF page 3 of this guidance.
Apologies, Mr. Parker. I've lost my reference. Could you just give me the reference to the Cambridge document we're referring to?
736.
CD 736. Thank you very much.
Are you there, Ms. Lonergan?
Yes.
So, obviously, Cambridgeshire has decided to use the DMRB for some of the roads which fall within its jurisdiction, including the A1 303.
Yes, and that's typical, yeah.
Okay. But Cambridge has also given guidance about how the principles and the requirements should be applied in this document, hasn't it?
Yes.
And we can see paragraph 1.1, little 3, at the bottom of the left-hand column of this page. Yeah. You on page 3?
Yes,
You can see where.
while setting out the principles.
Yeah,
one.
that paragraph, yeah. And we can see, for example, each proposal will be considered on its own merits in relation to the nature of the use, the history of the site, the street environment from which access is gained, and any other material considerations, yeah?
Yes.
Now, you explained in your examination in chief that when...
Just for context, just let Mr. Lonergan read the whole that paragraph, so I don't read out part of it. Which is what James Lonergan got it.
Yes, thank you for that.
Now, when you gave evidence in chief, you explained that the process of applying for departures from standards would involve consideration in principle of a number of different factors.
Yes.
And in a sense, what this guidance is doing is providing some policy guidance support for the approach which you say is applied in practice.
Yes, and to the DFT document.
And the DFT document,
For-
yeah.
For applying for departures for standards, yes.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we would always look at the context and the local area.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, in terms of the DMRB, it would be wrong to view the DMRB requirements as it were, a black and white standard in which the acceptability of if one doesn't comply with one element of the DMRB, that arrangement is in and of itself unacceptable by reason of the failure to comply with that requirement.
And that is why departures are allowed.
Exactly right. And in exercising the judgment as to whether a departure from standard is allowed, you take into account all these various factors. And at the end of the day, you're exercising a judgment which balances different considerations.
Yes, and often we'd actually go higher than is required in the DMRB if we can. So we don't always go to the minimums. So it goes both ways.
And just, I mean, it's fair to say, although much of this is anecdotal, but we'll hear from Mr. Johnson. It's fair to say that the process of applying for departures from standards is relatively commonplace.
Yes.
Even in the design of new roads, where they're being designed so far as possible to the highest standards in accordance with the DMRB. That's fair, isn't
Yes.
it? I mean, it's the case that, as Mr. Cameron pointed out, your own scheme necessitates departures from standards. So it would be wrong to think, wouldn't it, that in some way, in principle, the need for an application for a departure from standard was exceptional or unusual.
I agree. Yeah.
And I appreciate your case is that the cumulative effect
Yes.
is too much. I'm not asking you to revisit that judgment, but just in terms of the principle. What's your understanding of the process of applying for departures where the DMRB applies as a matter of policy on the part of the local planning authority, which has decided to apply it, but the road isn't part of the SRN? What would be the process of that?
It'd be similar to the Highways England, which is the discussions and then the submission of a form, but it's largely discussion and providing evidence, and then a balance of risk, of benefit. There's a list of 4 or 5 items within the guidance for departures for standards.
But it would be a discussion, wouldn't it?
Yes.
I think you've already said that. It'd be a discussion with the local highway authority.
Yeah, they're technical.
and
Technical authority, yes.
with the technical authority, with a view to seeing whether the departure is justified, and or if the highway authority takes the view that it isn't justified, what can be done to enable the scheme to more closely accord with the standard or meet the standard.
Yes, or other mitigations that can be provided.
Or
yes.
other mitigations are provided, yeah. But in that sense, although at the end of the day the highway authority has to decide whether to permit the departure,
Yeah.
it's an iterative process.
Very much.
Very much.
And that's why the cumulative impact becomes so important.
Now, what you mentioned the SES. What is the SES?
It's the technical authority for the for Highways England.
Okay, and what?
National Highways.
I mean, in the case of
In
the
case of
application.
Cambridge, they've got their own people, all very similar. But there are discussions between them to keep the standards similar, the same.
Sorry, I think you just jumped in.
Sorry.
You may have answered the question I was about to ask, but just hold on for the question. What is your understanding of the role of the SES in a situation that would that this scheme would entail, insofar as this is not part of the SRN, not the road controlled by Highways England?
It would be a similar approach, and there's discussions between the different teams, but in this case it will go to the Cambridge team.
So it wouldn't go to the SES. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Let's go to the content then. So you've obviously produced a rebuttal proof. There's the table that you've produced, and you've separately produced a report.
Yeah.
And to some extent, there's repetition between those.
There
three.
is. I was hoping it was helpful, but yes.
Yeah, I'm not criticising you. I'm not criticising you for it, but just so that we are all on the same page, and the inspectors understand where my questions are going. I'm going to focus on your report in the first instance,
Yes.
rather than on the other places where you sort of set out the concerns that you've raised. Okay. So that if you take up your rebuttal appendices, please.
Right.
And it's Appendix 1, and the report begins on page 4.
Yep.
But
Yeah, I think it might be 5. Or would it be, yes. Yep.
yeah,
Page 4 is the front cover.
Yeah.
page 4 is the front
Yeah.
cover. Well, we don't need to look at the front cover.
No.
And some nice pictures, but first reference I want to ask you about is on page 14, under 3.3, section 3.3, yeah?
Yep, just about there. Yes.
And you say, CPPF's plans rely on limited topographical survey data covering only a narrow corridor, fails to provide sufficient context of key surrounding features such as Manley Woods and the American Cemetery. Numerous trees on or near the highway boundary, potentially impacted by the scheme, are also omitted.
Yep.
Can I ask you please to turn up the proof of evidence of Dominic Woodfield, who is CPPF's ecologist?
You have to give me the number.
Yep. Give me a second. It is CD 26. Yeah. W10 W4 1. Tell me when you found it, Mr. Lonergan. Are you on the website?
Yeah, I'm using the links that were sent
Yeah.
out.
So you know where you need to go, yeah?
Yeah, I do, but I'm not finding it. So CD26 W10.
CD 26 10 W4.
Right, I'm just do the old-fashioned one. Just going down them.
You found it?
Nearly. God, there's a lot. Right, CD26, 10W4, 4.1.
4.1, yes. Dominic Woodfield, proof of evidence.
Yep, there.
Thank you. Now, if you go to PDF page 65, you can see the inspectors are working from the hard copy document. If you go to page 64, which is the very end of the proof, and then there are some drawings which figures, sorry, page 59, or internal page numbering, and then
That's the declaration.
that's the declaration. Then there's some. Then I want to look at the figures which follow immediately.
Yes.
Yeah.
The coloured ones with the stripes.
Yeah. Have you seen this evidence before, Mr. Lonergan? I'm assuming from your reaction not, but
No, I haven't.
no. I mean, because
We went through and plotted it from the design that was sent across.
yeah, because CPPF has carried out a very detailed assessment of the effect of the alternative that is presented, including the plotting of individual trees that you can see on these drawings.
And that came in August.
This
It
came with
dated
the-
August, yeah.
at the same time as the evidence from Mr. Johnston. Yeah,
To be honest, we put our time into going through the highway design.
yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, just and Mr. Woodfield. I mean, I appreciate that Mr. Woodfield's evidence in terms of the effect of the CPPF alternative on ecological assets
Yeah.
is not a matter for you,
No.
as it were. But Mr. Woodfield has carried out a very detailed analysis of the likely effect of the CPPF scheme, potential effect of the CPPF scheme on, among other things, Madingley Wood, Triple SI. And again, you just in terms of its existence, you weren't aware of that.
I'd heard that there was one by CPPF, but no, I haven't been through
Okay.
this.
Well, I'm not going to. I mean, you haven't looked. I'm not going to ask you any questions in detail about it. But I just put it to you that your concern about the absence of, for example, data in respect of the likely tree loss, in fact, isn't right, because Mr. Woodfield has performed that assessment in his.
I haven't read Mr. Woodfield's, but when we superimposed the design on the model, it looked to us as though there was still tree loss.
Mm. I'm just asking about just be there's quite a specific question. You say
I
in
haven't
paragraph
looked-
3.3.1 that CPPF hadn't assessed, for example, the extent to which there would be tree loss. And
I wasn't aware that they had.
Yeah, but I'm putting to you now. We've seen that evidence that they have.
Yes, it must have.
Where does it say in 3.3.1 layout?
PDF 5. So let me find it.
Rely on limited topographical survey data
Yeah.
covering only a narrow corridor. This fails to provide sufficient context for key surrounding features.
Yeah. Numerous trees
Trees.
on or near the highway boundary potentially impacted by the scheme are also omitted.
Omitted.
And the CPPF scheme design doesn't include all the verges
Yes.
and everything outside the curbs, which is what
Yeah, but
part of what's going to impact the trees. So I think it's possible that
no, let's,
the ecological survey has
I'm
filled
great.
in the gaps that are missing from the CPPF design.
let's be clear. I'm grateful
For the best of
Cameron's
reasons, I'm sure.
intervention. You say numerous trees on or near the highway potentially impacted are omitted from CPPF's design. They're
Yes.
not omitted from CPPF's design. They've been considered by Mr. Woodfield in his evidence.
But that's not part of the highway design. That's a review of the, and that goes right out to the fences, whereas the highway design doesn't.
Okay.
The actual CPPF design isn't complete and out to the fence lines.
Well, okay, fine. We're going to come on and look at the extent to which.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You've asked the witness to look at these drawings. I'm just having a look at them here. Can we just clarify exactly what these drawings show?
Yeah.
I mean, it says here it's a baseline habitats map. So
Yeah.
does this show the trees which would or wouldn't be affected by the CPPF scheme, or is it neutral? Is it just showing what's there,
No, so if
and
you
there's
go-
no application of the scheme?
So if you go to page 69, PDF page 69. Sorry,
There's no page numbers where we are.
I
so-
apologise. So you have to
Right, so
you have to go down. There's some.
is this
It's not particularly helpful that the figures aren't numbered, so I apologise for that. But if you go down,
figure DW5, is this?
yeah, you can see an analysis of which trees would be retained, which trees would be lost, and then
Oh, right,
an
it's much further.
assessment of the significance of that within the body of the group.
All right, so it's not just the yellow and the red dots on the plans then?
Sorry?
Those plans had yellow and red dots for trees.
Yeah, they do, and that's what we're looking at. Yeah.
Right, okay. But you said DW5.
Yeah. So what you're looking at electronically? So on page
Yeah,
16.
and that's got, yeah.
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 So in answer to your question, so yes, the effect of the scheme has been assessed through these drawings as it's presented. Now I think, Mr. Longer, your point is, well, this doesn't capture the true effect of the scheme
Yeah.
because you would need infrastructure. But that depends, doesn't it?
DW5 is the UK Biodiversity Action Plan. It's not the drawings.
Well, you on page 16? Look at page 69,
Right.
PDF.
Oh, I thought you said DW5.
Yeah. Well,
You did.
Sorry, I was just reading off what the figure number is on this drawing. It says
it may be
figure
helpful.
DW5.
It may be
Right,
helpful
so I'm on
for-
69, yes, I've got the drawing with the red and yellow circles, yeah.
It may be helpful for all our benefits if we produce, because we're going to look at these documents presumably in more detail, if we produce a version that has page numbers on. We don't have to, but if that would be helpful to the smooth running of the inquiry. But otherwise, working from the PDF version, that's the diagram I'm looking at, yeah?
Yeah, the one with the red and,
Yeah.
red
Now,
and yellow
now,
dots.
so in terms of an assessment of the CPPF scheme as it's presented, that is analysis of the extent to which there would or wouldn't be tree loss. Yeah? You accept that? I'm going to...
Yes, and I suspect he's filled in the gaps from what isn't completed within the design to try and be helpful, but yes.
Yeah,
I don't think
one of
the whole thing's
well,
holistic, but yes, I agree.
I can ask Mr. Johnson about it. I think
Yeah.
one of the difficulties that CPPF has faced is that getting hold of topographical survey from data from the county council has been like getting blood out of a stone, to use a colloquialism. Yeah? So I don't want to make an issue of that.
No.
The inspectors aren't going to be interested in that, but I think that is part of the process that Mr. Woodfield has undertaken to try and assess the impact. Now, I appreciate you have a wider concern, which is that this scheme isn't complete. You'd need roadside infrastructure of various kinds, which would have a further impact
Yes.
on trees, which isn't captured in this data. Yeah. Now, in principle, if further roadside infrastructure were needed, that isn't captured in the data. So you're right about that, and we can come on and look at the significance of that, if at all, in due
Yeah.
course. But just so that we're all on the same page about what this data shows, yeah,
Yes.
you're happy with that?
Yes. Yeah.
Fine. Now, next set of questions. I want to ask you about the road safety and particularly speed limit issue that you've raised in your report. Now, it's right, isn't it, that when one is considering compliance with the DMRB standards, that there is a correlation between the speed limit and the safety requirements or the justification for the departure from the standard in question. That's
Yes.
right, isn't it, in principle? And the speed limit is likely to influence the extent to which departures from standards may be permissible.
Yes.
Now, the road is currently a 50 mile per hour road. PPF have proposed reducing the speed limit to 40 miles an hour for the eastern section of the part that we're concerned with, yeah?
Yep.
Now, you say that that's inappropriate, having regard to the characteristics of the road, and you've given evidence on
Yes.
that. I just want to come and look at
Yeah.
what you say about that. So you deal with this in your report at section 3.6, page 16. So these are your rebuttal appendices. PDF page 16.
Yes, 3.6.
Sorry, I think I've given you the wrong reference.
It's got proposed changes to existing speed limits.
No, maybe I do.
It's the one that has the 50 mile
So
an
I'm
hour
getting
upper
lost.
tier.
I'm getting lost in my documents. I should
Not the only
trust.
one.
I should trust what I've written down. Right. Proposed changes to existing speed limits. Now, you have referred here to the speed limit policy, and you've extracted the table, and you say that we're squarely within the 50 mile per hour box,
Yes.
essentially. But it's right, isn't it, that in principle, the Highway Authority does envisage situations in which a 40 mile per hour speed limit would be appropriate for a rural road, because we've got a box.
Yes, it does, and it depends upon a number of factors which are further down under 365.
Yeah, but subject to a judgment by reference to those factors. There's nothing in principle unacceptable or inappropriate about a 40 mile per hour rural road.
No, there's plenty of them around the country.
Plenty of, exactly. Now, we see here the box for 40 miles per hour says should be considered where there is a high number of bends, junctions or accesses, substantial development, and then here where there is a strong environmental or landscape reason, or where there are considerable numbers of vulnerable road users.
Yes.
Now the short point here is that where there would be an environmental justification for reducing the road speed to 40 miles per hour, for example, to avoid an impact on Madingley Wood SSI, it would be a straightforward application of the guidance.
It would still be a judgment using what's under 365, because there's other things to consider.
Yeah, I appreciate that. There's a whole range of things which go into it, but just taking each of the matters that you've relied on in turn, in terms of the application of the policy and the box and the criteria that are referred to in the policy, there's nothing in this. I mean,
They could decide to do it, yes, within that.
And one of the reasons that they might decide to do it is that there was a strong environmental justification for it. For example, avoiding effects on Madingley Wood SSI.
I think most of the environmental reductions would tend to be actually harm to other people rather than anything else, or harm to the environment. So it's sort of fumes and that sort of thing, and noise, rather than actually woods. And it could be woods. I've not seen it done for. I've not seen it done to protect roots before. Or trees.
Okay. Well, I mean, but surely here we're looking at, for example, the need to reduce the width of the road to avoid tarmac, which would affect Madingley Wood SSI. Yeah, and that's one of the constraints on the provision of a DMRB compliant lane width. Yeah?
Yes.
Madingley Wood SSI, yeah? You accept that. Now, if there's a strong environmental reason for avoiding that impact, which a 40 mile per hour speed, I know that's not your domain.
I'm not doubting that it could be done, but I've never seen it. I've never seen a speed limit put in to protect the tree roots.
So you I mean,
there must be other environmental things as well that could be considered.
Yeah. Okay, but you're not suggesting to the inspectors that it would not be open to the local highway authority as a matter of judgment to find that the speed limit should be reduced to 40 miles per hour, applying the guidance in this box?
It could be, but bearing in mind 365, there's also capacity and flow issues along the road and other things.
Yeah, we'll come and look at those, but that's helpful in terms of the policy. Thank you.
Mr. Lonergan, just before we move on from this, could you just outline the procedure for seeking a reduction in the speed limit?
It would apply for a traffic order, basically. It's applying for a traffic order to in this case, the Highway Authority, which will be Cambridgeshire. And there's forms for it, and again, it's a discussion, and there's a justification to go within the form, and then a reference back to standards to show the benefits and the disbenefits, or the implications. But it's a bit like it's rather like a departure. There's guidelines laid down, and then there's advice with the guidelines, and then there's a discussion. But there's a number of factors which are sitting under 365, which are also considered with on the next page.
Yeah. Now, so that's the policy. Then 3.6.2, you say you've carried out an assessment of the design speed
Yes.
using alignment and layout constraints. Now, it's right, isn't it, that the Highway Authority, well, I should say, haven't produced any speed surveys. I don't know whether speed surveys have been done, but there's no speed survey evidence indicating exactly how fast cars do travel along this part of the highway network.
I've not seen it, but they did reduce the speed limit from 60 to 50 relatively recently, so they must have done some surveys.
That's helpful. And if vehicles were travelling below 50 miles an hour, closer to 40 miles an hour, that would be a factor which one would take into account, wouldn't one, in deciding whether it was appropriate to reduce the speed limit to 40 miles per hour? Is that right?
It would, but it's largely safety. But yes, it's also the flow and the capacity.
Yeah, but if in fact most vehicles are travelling at close to 40 miles an hour, then reducing the speed limit to 40 miles an hour wouldn't make any difference to flow or capacity.
Yeah, potentially yes. Yeah.
But we just don't know because no speed surveys have been done.
I've not seen a speed survey.
No. So in terms of flow capacity based on empirical evidence about those matters, it isn't possible to say that a 40 miles per hour speed limit would be inappropriate in those terms because we just don't have the speed surveys that haven't been done.
We don't, but there's a traffic model which shows from which you can actually model it and look at the flows on the different roads.
Yeah. Well, we've done traffic modelling yesterday. CPPF have got lots of concerns about transport modelling that's been done. So I don't want to go back over that evidence. But without the speed survey, it's not possible to say what in fact.
It's one of the factors, certainly, yes, but I've not seen one.
Okay. Now, in examination in chief, and you've referred to what you say at 3.6.5, you gave three reasons. The first of which, as to why it would be inappropriate to reduce the limit from 50 to 40. The first of which would be that it would reduce capacity in the road.
Yes.
But as I understand it, reducing the speed limit increases the capacity of the road, doesn't?
It depends, and it depends upon how the road flows.
Yeah, I mean, because when you're travelling on the motorway,
it's the variation in speed that's the issue.
Okay.
Generally, rather than pure speed.
Exactly. Okay, that's helped. So reducing the speed limit from 50 to 40, if in fact that were to improve the consistency of speeds along the road, that would increase the capacity of the road rather than reduce it.
It would, but it would depend upon the average speed.
Exactly, but you can't tell unless you haven't done a speed survey.
No, but it could. It can reduce it and it can increase it.
Yeah. So.
But in this case, we can't say without a survey.
We can't say. So it's impossible to say that reducing the speed limit from 50 miles per hour to 40 miles per hour would reduce capacity, as you did in examination in chief, because we just don't know.
In this case, we don't have the evidence to go with it. On the other hand, the buses are aimed at driving at 50 anyway, so
yeah,
if we put in a 40 mile an hour limit, we reduce the speed of those and the benefits.
Okay, that's a different point. I'm going to ask you about that, but I'm helpful. Thank you for your answer on capacity. And then the next point that you referred to is the fact that this part of the road is a diversionary route for the SRN, and I just wonder what reliance you place on that, because the fact that it's a diversionary route for the SRN does not mean that a 40-mile-per-hour speed limit is inappropriate, does it?
It doesn't, but the aim is to use the diversionary routes that have the higher speeds to minimise the disruption of the travelling public.
I mean,
It's one factor among the 6 or 7 that are there.
yeah, but okay, so there's nothing in principle which makes a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit inappropriate for a diversionary route, is there?
No, there isn't, except it means that people might choose other diversions, to use unofficial diversionary routes rather than planned diversionary routes.
And as well as there being nothing in principle wrong about a 40-mile-per-hour speed limit for a diversionary route, there are plenty of diversionary routes
Yes.
around the country for the SRN
Which are
on
40s.
which are 40
Yeah.
miles per hour.
Yeah,
So there's no in principle reason, and it's relatively commonplace.
yes. But this goes back to your balance of all 7.
Yeah, I appreciate
one,
that.
yeah.
I appreciate that. But it's right, isn't it? The last 2 factors, reducing capacity and it being a diversionary route, we've agreed aren't reasons in and of themselves.
They're
as
not
to
of their
why.
own, it's as part of the whole.
Okay. And then the last point you made was that buses are intended to run along the busway at 50 miles an hour.
Yes, so part of the... Sorry.
Yeah, let me just ask my question. I know you, there's probably lots you want to say, but let me ask the question. And so they would only be able to travel at 40 miles an hour along the busway. Now, I mean, I think I know why you're. Let me see if I'm right in my understanding as to why you say that's important. But that will then affect journey times.
It will, and part of the aim of the bus route is to be competitive with the car travel times.
Yeah, but I mean, for this section of the route that we're talking about, the difference between a bus travelling at 50 miles an hour and 40 miles an hour is likely to be relatively small, isn't it?
It is, but it's then still got to get into the into Grange Road and then the middle of Cambridge.
Yeah.
This only solves part of the problem. It doesn't solve the whole problem.
Yeah, and by far the majority of the delays when one from in this part of the route are within the city centre.
They are, but Grange Road gets you halfway into it,
Yeah,
or
to
most of the
wit-
way into it.
And the busway will make absolutely no difference. So when you're measuring journey times into the city centre, actually the saving that you would make on this section of the route as a proportion of the overall journey time is even smaller, because on either option you're going to have a lot of delay in the city centre in any event.
Yeah, the
That's
measure,
right,
the measure should be to Grange Road, yeah.
Yeah. Now, again, I don't know whether you were here for the evidence of Mr. Whitehouse, but the applicant chose not to rerun any models for journey time savings in light of COVID.
To be honest, that's not my field.
I
It's, yeah.
appreciate that. I appreciate that, but in terms of the journey time saving, which is claimed or would result from a comparison between a 50 mile an hour and a 40 mile an hour route, I mean, that difference is so minimal that the applicant would have chosen not to even model that difference in journey time savings.
And that's why the route doesn't go on the Mattingley Road and goes across to the north of Coton, and it's actually on the Greenfield route to take it off this road.
Yeah, no, but the difference between running at 50 versus 40 over such a short section of the route is going to make such a minimal difference that it wouldn't make any difference to to what the applicant would say about the benefits of the scheme. We know that because they didn't sensitivity test
Right.
COVID at all.
Right, in general, yes, but equally there's more junctions and there's more turning movements across the bus lane.
Okay.
So that will introduce more congestion and more delay.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not just running at 40 miles an hour, it's also the more turning movements,
Okay, well,
junctions and disruption from other road users.
Yeah, okay, well that's a different point, that's a new point, a new objection that you've come up with, which you didn't refer to yesterday in Examination Chief. I make no criticism of it, but just let's stick with what you did say, which is the 50 mile and 40 mile an hour difference. It's not a material difference between the two,
So
is it?
as long as they're both running uninterrupted, it's not much of a difference, I agree.
Not much of a difference, thanks.
It's the interruptions for the turning movements of the junctions.
Okay, but Mr. Lonergan, you say that it's a cumulative effect of all
Yes.
these different things, that would lead to a judgment that reduction from 50 to 40 was unacceptable.
Yes.
But let's just go through all of the different things. You accept that it would be in accordance with the speed policy that we've looked at, the 40 mile an hour box, and the judgment could be made to that effect. You accept that we haven't done speed surveys, so we've got no way of judging what the speed of the road is. You accept that we aren't able to make a judgment about capacity. You accept that there's nothing inappropriate about a diversionary route being 40 miles an hour, and you accept that the difference between 50 miles an hour and 40 miles an hour is relatively minor. So just let me ask my question. So even taking all the cumulative effect of all those factors into account, there isn't any possible justification for saying that there's no prospect that it would be considered appropriate to reduce the speed limit from 50 to 40 for this section, is there?
It would need to look on the traffic flows and the capacity of the system, and there's also the other issue about the lower credibility, and that's how people drive to the perceived speed of a road, and it's whether it's a 50 or a 40. I know they shouldn't, but it's how people drive, and it's the safety of it when it isn't congested.
Okay, well, let me ask you about that perceived safety. I mean, what
Mr. Parker, before you do, I'm just not quite sure about the premise of your question in a number of ways. For example, the diversionary route. I'm not sure. Well, my note isn't that Mr. Lonergan accepted that it was acceptable. I think he accepted the principle of a diversionary route could be on a 40 mile per hour road, not necessarily this one.
Yeah.
I think you just need to be careful about the way you're phrasing the question.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
And also, sir, on the principle of it being 40, but he said it was a matter of judgment. He didn't say in principle that's acceptable at 40. He said a judgment could be made.
Yeah, I think I did. To be fair to me, I think I did put it in that way in respect to the
I'm
policy.
not sure, but anyway.
Anyway, I entirely accept that premise, but
We will rely on those.
of course you will, sir. Of course you will. Now, sorry, where were we? You made the point, Mr. Lonergan, that the perception of what the speed limit should be is an important factor, and we're going to come on and look at lane widths and standards in due course. But it's right, isn't it, that if the lane widths were narrowed, in general, that would encourage people to drive at a slower speed?
Yes, it slows everyone down, and that definitely reduces the capacity. Because it makes people much more cautious, because there's much more risk of actually a side collision with the other vehicles.
Yeah. Okay. Just let's take it in turn. Your point. The point that you were making is that there's no point reducing the speed limit from 50 to 40 if everyone thinks that the appropriate speed to drive along a road is 50 miles an hour. Is that in colloquial terms?
That's part of the judgment. Yes.
Yeah. So let's just deal with that part of the judgment for the moment. If one reduces the widths of the lanes, that is going to lead people to drive more slowly in general terms. Is that right?
It is, but it's also going to increase the risk of collisions and impacts with vehicles either side.
Yeah. I understand your case on that. We'll come on and look at that. But that is a factor that one would take into account in deciding whether the perception of how fast one should drive along the road was appropriate for a given stretch of road.
Yes.
Yeah. I see you're looking at your watches. Do you want to decide on an appropriate time to break?
Well, seems very easy. I was planning to go on to about just after 11:30, because I think that would be the 2 hours that you anticipated. I was going to ask you in about a quarter an hour how you were getting on. I'll ask you now how you're getting on.
I think I'm going to be longer than 2 hours with Mr. Lonergan. Not much longer, but a little bit longer. But can I also get in before I face any barrage of criticism for that, which is that I'm going to be very much less than my estimated time limit with Mr. Baker. So in terms of the overall programme for the day, I don't have any concerns that we will be able to fit in what's envisaged. But I think I will probably be a little bit longer than I had anticipated with Mr. Lonergan.
How much longer do you think?
Oh, so I hate these. Find it very difficult to judge. I maybe need another an additional half an hour, 45 minutes beyond what I had anticipated.
Well, putting aside sort of things about estimates, and I appreciate your sort of anticipation of the lesser time you're going to use later, which we'll no doubt all remember. I'll suggest actually we'll have a break now, and then resume afterwards, rather than waiting until about half past 11. So I make it 11, and we'll have a break and come back at 11.
Thank you.
So the inquiry's adjourned. Right, well, I make it 20 past 11. It's time for the inquiry to resume. And over to you again, Mr. Parker.
Thank you. So, Mr. Lonergan, if we can turn to the schedule of departures table in the appendix to your rebuttal proof of evidence.
Yep.
Which is on page 34, I think, of the PDF.
Yes.
Now, just to understand your nomenclature, you've identified two categories in this table, one being a departure from standard, the other being a deviation from recommendation.
Yes.
And as I understand it, you aren't required to obtain approval from a deviation from recommendation. That's, as it were, within the discretion of the designer. Is that right?
Yes, and it refers back to the drawings that we marked up, yes.
Yeah.
So the departures are the key ones.
The departure, fine, that's helpful, thank you. Now, just looking at the list, we're not going to go through each and every one of these in detail, but if you just turn to the second page of the table, for example,
Yep.
departures 7 through to 11.
Yep.
Tell me if I'm wrong, if I've understood it correctly, if the speed limit were reduced to 40 miles per hour, those departures would be resolved because it relates to the stopping sight distance for a road at 50 miles per hour.
It says the increased risk of collisions involving vehicles exiting from the junction access. If the proposed 50-mile-an-hour speed limit cannot be secured, the 60-mile-an-hour sight limit would be 3 steps below. So yes, it improves if it goes down to 40.
Sorry, say that I missed your answer then.
So it's 3 steps below at 50,
Yeah.
being acceptable, and it takes it closer at 40. And I have to admit, I can't remember whether it's actually there at 40.
Okay. So just in terms of the answer to my question, it just dictates what I ask Mr. Johnston to comment on.
Yeah.
So I had understood, just tell me if I'm wrong, but I had understood that if the speed limit were reduced to 40 miles per hour, those departures at D7 through to D11 would essentially disappear.
I think it's probably worth checking whether they actually cross-match the ones that was in their table. And I can't remember that at the moment. But generally, yes, if we can reduce the speed limit, it reduces the departures.
Okay.
But it's worth checking.
Okay. And I mean, you've said in general, reduction in speed limit reduces the departures.
Yes.
I mean, as I understand it, and again, this is a clarificatory question to understand what you're saying. As I understand your case, it's not that any one of these departures that you've listed in your table is significant enough in and of itself to say that the road as it's presented.
I think it may well do for the M11 overbridge, actually.
Okay,
So
well,
it barely
that's-
fits in.
Sorry to interrupt you. That's why I wanted to ask you. So, are there any departures that you have identified which you say in and of themselves are, so to speak, showstoppers?
Principally the lane widths. Yes, the visibility is a problem, but it's the lane widths that stop things fitting in. And certainly if you go to a section HH and the M11,
Okay,
it wouldn't fit in as soon as things get wider.
Okay, so and in terms of individual departures, is it just the M11 overbridge where?
If you could have one without any of the others, it'd be worth applying for. But it's the cumulative effect of having the departures together.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine someone's going to go for. Well, traditionally, when you go for one lane width, you wouldn't go for all of them. And in this case, I've gone for all of them.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to make sure I'm absolutely clear on what you're saying, because it's quite important. Are you saying that any one of these departures, in and of itself, is sufficiently serious that it would not be granted, irrespective of whether there were any others, and in which which one or ones are
It's
they?
principally the lane widths.
So you say that even if everything else was resolved, you wouldn't get permission for the
Without
reduction
lane widths.
in lane widths. Anything else apart from lane width that you
Well,
wouldn't get permission for if it
There
were
are
applied
problems
for
with
an isolation?
visibility, but there are potential things that could be done with it. But it's
Okay.
the lane widths, it's the central treatment as well, and there was something else about the turning. The widening on the curves is another one, but that's lane widths.
Okay. Well, I just want, as I say, I want just a clear understanding
Yeah.
of what your position is in terms of these departures in isolation. So is it lane widths?
Lane widths, the central reserve, the turning of the central reserve. Lane widths also applies to the widening. There's quite a lot of curve widening actually.
Okay, so I've written down lane widths and central reserve.
Yeah, they're the most important ones.
Yeah, but I'm not. Yeah, okay. But my question was very specific. In isolation, are they objectionable, even if all of the other departures were resolved? Your evidence to the inspectors is, even if all the other departures were resolved, in a hypothetical world, you still
If there was
wouldn't
only
get permission for the lane
one
width.
that was acceptable, you could then go and have the discussion. But you'd need to put in other mitigations, and
Yeah,
there wouldn't be space to fit it in. But yes,
Well, that's what I'm asking. That's
traditionally
what,
you'd only go with one or two departures to the approval authority.
Yeah,
Yes.
I understand that. I understand, but I just want to understand whether it's part of your case to suggest that any single one of these departures, in and of itself, in isolation, is so serious that even if everything else was resolved, you wouldn't get permission.
It is the cumulative effect.
So is the answer to my question no? It is the cumulative
It's the
effect.
cumulative effect.
Okay. So in isolation,
Sorry,
But
Mr.
it
Parker,
depends
I
upon-
just want to be clear on this in view of what went before it. Because I thought you'd said earlier, Flanagan, that lane widths was, to use Mr. Parker's phrase, a showstopper.
It is, if you only had one lane width that was substandard, and you brought all the others up to standard, there's the potential to do something. But I can't, it'd be unlikely to have a design that did that.
But there are as I understand it, you have other concerns apart from lane widths.
We do, yes. So it's the turning in the middle, so it's the hardening in the centre. There are other ones here, but if you,
So what I want to know is, are you saying that lane widths generally, that as an issue,
yes,
is something that could stand in the way?
yes, as would the hardening of the centre for the turning.
Evidence before, so which consistent with that, was it's the lane widths and the central treatment that on their own would not be permitted.
Yes.
well, I'm not sure that is clear from. I'm still not clear about what Mr. Lonergan's
It's
position
in
is
the text further up, yes.
He said,
yeah.
my note it was wouldn't get permission, I wrote down.
So, Mr. Lonergan, at the end of your series of questions, you suggested if there was just an issue with one of the lane widths, you might get.
But it'd be very hard to solve one on its
permission.
own.
Okay, fine. But I'm just asking, of the departures that you've identified in your table, and it's a very straightforward. I think it's a fair
the most
and
important
straightforward
ones are lane
question.
widths and
I'm not
turning.
asking.
Yeah.
Sorry, just wait for me to ask a question. I'm not asking about most important. I'm asking about if you resolved all the other lines in the table and you were left with one line, would any of those lines in your table, in and of themselves, be showstoppers in the sense that if there were no other issues, they would prevent
Yes,
permission being granted?
the
for this scheme?
central lane and the cross section, or the central lanes and the cross section. You could do something with a narrow lane on the edge, but not in the middle.
Central lanes.
Yes,
in the cross
the lane either way, and then the busway. Sorry, the busway, and then the two lanes, and it gives us nowhere to go.
Okay, so just
He didn't say in the cross section, he said at the cross section.
Yeah, yeah.
sorry. Okay, so central lanes and the cross section, and just so I understand what you mean by that, it's the reduction in width of the carriageways to 3.25.
It's the reduction in width of the lane, which then means the vehicle is likely to stray one way or the other.
Okay, so it's the reduction in width of the lane to 3.25 metres
down to whatever it's ended up.
Well, I think that is where it's ended up. You say that in and of itself
Yes.
would be a showstopper.
If you had that down the middle.
Yeah, but in terms of the other departures that you've identified, it's their cumulative effect,
Yes.
which you say is unacceptable.
Yes.
None of them individually would in and of themselves be showstoppers.
I think they would on the M11 bridge, but in general, once you come off it,
Okay, so we've got central lanes across the road, and then you've got a specific concern in the location of the M11
Yes.
bridge. Right. Apart from that, so apart from the specific location of the M11 bridge, the lane widths that you've referred to, there are no other showstoppers when those departures are considered individually. So is that a fair understanding of
individually,
your
but
evidence?
cumulatively they would be a stopper.
I know,
Yes.
I know. Individually though,
Yeah.
in and of themselves, none of those departures would be unacceptable.
If it was if it was down to just one with everything else, all the other 16 resolved or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now, okay. So I just want to ask you about. We're in the as we've identified at the outset. The context for this evidence is to try and see whether the constraints on the delivery of a CPPF alternative, which would avoid all of the harms associated with the busway, can be overcome. What is your position as to what would be an acceptable lane width for lanes in the carriageway?
I would expect it to go back to match the cross section that's in the DMRB.
So you wouldn't accept any reduction in lane width whatsoever?
I would start off by not reducing them.
No, I know that. Obviously, that's the DMRB standard. That's where everyone starts. But we're working in a very constrained environment here with the objective of avoiding very significant harm to the green belt, CPO, and all the rest of it. So I'm asking you to give your professional judgment as to what would be an acceptable lane width to mean that that lane width wasn't a showstopper. What are we looking at?
To be honest, I think you're probably going to end up at the 365 without the widening on the curves. You're not going to go much narrower than 365.
So you say, as an absolute minimum,
you'd lose the widening on the curves, and that's it.
3.5 metres, and you'd lose the widening on the curves.
Because
You wouldn't countenance any reduction by reference to the DMRB standard for the lane width, in and of itself.
I wouldn't. I mean, obviously, we'd have a look at the holistic design, but.
I mean, is that not unrealistic, Mr. Loring? I mean, there are, as we say, there are roads up and down the country which you, I presume, accept have lane widths which are narrower than the DMRB standard, yeah?
And there's already that road out there. There's presumably 3.65 at the moment, or something close.
But my point being, there are roads in the network at the moment, and I would dare to say that Cambridgeshire County Council are approving roads where the lane widths are narrower than 3.65. Do you think that's a fair assumption, or is that an unfair assumption?
It is, but it would need to look at the overall design before,
Yeah.
rather than just look at the lane widths on their own.
Well, yeah, but that takes us back to the overall judgment. You are saying that lane widths in and of themselves are a showstopper, and you wouldn't countenance a reduction from 3.65 metres. And I'm saying to you that's unrealistic.
I think you'd have to accept that locally it might need to be done, but it would have to look at the overall design and what the benefits and implications were.
Yeah, that's the entire point, Ms. Loning. That's what CPPF is trying to say. So I'm trying to get a sense from you, if one is trying to explore a way in which you could deliver an alternative scheme which avoids all of the harm associated with the busway, what would be a minimum acceptable lane width? And you're saying it's a DMRB standard. I'm saying that's not realistic,
Yeah, no,
because look at all these other roads.
We can't look at coming down until we looked at the actual details of what the constraints are.
Okay, and that's work that the applicant...
We'd have to look at the actual traffic flows around the network as well.
Yeah, and that's work that the applicant hasn't done.
There was sufficient done in the option selection to show that the off-road showed more benefit than on-road.
Yeah, I mean, that's not an answer
Yes,
as a matter
the
of
option
fact.
selection process, we only need to get it so far so that we can actually compare the schemes, and that's what was done within the reports, the option selection.
Well, I'm going to ask Mr. Baker about the history. I mean, CPF's concern throughout the history of this development is that this is precisely the work that the applicant should have done but hadn't done in order to carry out an appropriate comparison of the CPPF alternative as against the busway. You're aware of that?
I'm aware of it, but generally at the early stages of schemes, we'll work out the options and comparing options. We don't produce full designs. We produce enough of a design for each of the options to identify what the problems and the benefits are.
Yeah. But we've identified that we've got a scheme where a departure from a lane width may be necessary in order to fit the scheme within the constraints of the road. You said that a reduction in lane width might be justifiable, but you don't know how much without having done the design work.
But looking at the current scheme, there's so many departures needed that the cumulative effect makes it unlikely to be approved. Well, I don't think it will be approved.
Okay.
What was the last bit? Unlikely, and then you said something else.
It wouldn't be approved with the cumulative effect of the departures that are there.
Okay, but you
and there's been, I think to a certain extent, the CPPF design actually validates the assumptions and what came out of the option selection.
Okay, but you haven't done. I mean, you haven't done the appraisal to explore the extent to which a reduction in lane width might be feasible and might
because as part of the option selection, we design things in outlines so we can make a selection, and then we produce the detail of the option that's selected.
Okay.
Mr. Parker, I think we're probably in danger of going round and round on this.
Yes, I'm moving on. Thank you, sir. Now, some of the concerns that you have raised in your table of departures and report more generally relate to the effect on pedestrians and cyclists.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, we've already talked about the Cambourne Greenway alternative. We've discussed that in the previous questions, and the same question really as I asked previously, but just in this context. If the Cambourne Greenway were extended in the manner envisaged in the council's walking and infrastructure plan, and it was a more attractive route for cyclists and pedestrians, which is CPPF's case that it would be. And sorry, pausing there, I don't think you put any evidence in, or you don't challenge what Mr. Lee says about the relative attractiveness of the Cambourne Greenway against the busway. No. So that judgment.
Say you, it's just you just putting that.
Yeah.
Yeah, me, I haven't.
Mr. Lonergan. Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah.
Are you aware of any evidence on the part of the applicant as to the relative merits of the extension of the Cambourne Greenway?
No,
You're not
I've looked
aware.
at the plan and that's it. No.
Yeah, and you're not aware of any other witnesses giving evidence who've commented on that?
I don't know.
Sorry?
I'm not. I don't know.
You don't know. Fine. I won't ask you about that. Now, if on that basis the Cambourne Greenway were delivered and significantly more people were to use the Cambourne Greenway than the A1303 and the shared footway that is envisaged as part of the CPPF alternative, that's obviously going to be material to the acceptability of any departures from the DMRB, isn't it?
Yes, it would need an assessment of the likely amount of people.
Yeah. And in terms of the separation between the busway and the cycleway, you could have clear signage in the form of white lines, or even potentially physical infrastructure in the way of bollards to demarcate that segregation. That's right, isn't it?
Without sounding like a cracked record, the problem with the narrow lanes is there's a risk of people actually encroaching onto that cycleway. And it's already pretty narrow because it's 2 metres.
But that concern could be mitigated either completely or to a significant extent if there were physical separation in the way of, for example, bollards, mini bollards, which you see separating.
Yes, if there's space to do it.
Yeah. And again, as a matter of practice, I mean, I think there are roads in Cambridgeshire where there are cycleways separated from the main carriageway by lines
even
and
some
bollards.
space helps, but yes, I'm just looking at the cross sections, I don't see the space to do it, but yes, I agree.
There would be space to put in a line of bollards, Miss Lonergan, wouldn't there?
The 2 metre cycleway at the moment comes right up to the curb, from what I could see.
Yeah, but between in the space between, on the boundary between the roads, I mean, you're looking at I don't know how wide your standard bollard is, but you could install bollards
yes.
as a matter of physical separation, couldn't you?
I think you'd spend your life replacing them because they'd be the ones that get knocked down and reinstated. But yes, otherwise it'd be a hazard. You could run the orange and yellow ones along, but we've tried it and you just end up replacing them. But yes, it can be done.
Now, in terms of the conflict that you have identified between the footway and the carriageway would be a conflict between pedestrians and cyclists and buses, because the busway is the carriageway that's located immediately adjacent to the cycleway. That's right.
Yes, that's on that side. I think there's a footpath on the other side. But yes.
Yeah, I think for a short stretch where there are residential dwellings, there's a footway. But as I understand the majority of your concerns, they are conflicts between
the bus and
the pedestrians and the cyclist. Yeah. Now, it's right, isn't it? Again, this comes back to numbers, but the number of buses that are going to be using the inbound busway is relatively small, 10 to 12 an hour. So you'd be, if you were a cyclist or a pedestrian, you'd be passed by a bus once every 5 minutes on average.
Yeah, and then they come back the other way, hopefully. Yes.
Well, they would, on the CPPF alternative, but they'd be coming back on the normal carriageway because there isn't any congestion on that.
But we'd then need enough buses to provide them coming back at the same frequency, because they'd be getting stuck in traffic and coming back. It depends. It depends whether CPPF turns the buses round.
Well, I don't think it would. I don't think it's a matter for you because you don't deal with the modelling. But the point is that they wouldn't, because the significant congestion is inbound rather than outbound. But let's put that aside. In terms of, we're just dealing with the physical operation of the busway, right? In terms of conflicts between pedestrians and cyclists, it's a bus every 5 minutes.
Yes.
Right now, that frequency of conflict is, on any view, relatively low, isn't it?
It's not huge, it's certainly true to say. Yeah.
And again, that will be a factor that will be taken into account in deciding about the acceptability of that arrangement, yeah?
But I think you'd certainly want some sort of segregation or space. If you think of the wing mirrors of a bus, and there's no hard strips, so the buses are right up on the curb.
Now, in terms of the current arrangements, obviously, pedestrians and cyclists are in the vicinity of the main carriageway of the road, yeah?
Yes.
And that's busy traffic running both ways. So, if the CPPF alternative were implemented, for the majority of the times, apart from when a bus was running, there would be a bus lane's worth of separation between cyclists and pedestrians and the traffic using the carriageway. Yeah.
Yes, and it may well make that route more attractive to pedestrians and cyclists.
But that would be a benefit by comparison with the existing situation, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be if you got more people walking and cycling.
No, I'm talking about the increased. At the moment, you've got pedestrians
they'd be
and
further
cyclists
away.
right next to busy lanes of traffic.
Yes, they'd be further away.
With the CPPF alternative, it would be an improvement by comparison with the current position.
Yes.
Yes? Right, I just want to ask then about narrow lanes. You've referred to the PPR 200 Rural Road Safety Report in your rebuttal proof. I don't think, for your information, sirs, that report itself is in the documents. I'm not going to ask you to have it, but just to flag that up. But if you want it, Mr. Lonergan or the applicant to supply it to you. But this is a report that you quote from in your rebuttal proof. And this is, to give you the reference,
Is it mentioned in the table?
I'm not sure. I'm working
Sorry,
from the report.
PPR was at 200?
I think that's the I mean, is that right? That's what
doing
I've written down. I don't know.
No, it didn't like that.
You tell me. It's your report. You tell me what the report.
Which paragraph are you in?
I am in. I don't have a reference for it. Give me a second. I'll find it.
It's PPR 200. Try page 16 in rebuttal appendices.
Yeah.
TRL published project report.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So have you got that?
Sorry, can you say that again? For some reason my search isn't finding it.
Yeah, my search didn't find it either.
Sorry, it was
Well, it's
sorry.
PPR, then there's a space.
3.6.4.
Right. Okay. Sorry. Yep.
You got that? So you refer to this, and at a quieter moment, I've looked up the report myself. It's not in the bundle, but the final sentence, I think, is a direct quote from the report, and it says, well, the report goes on to say that, and then this is a quote: carriageway or lane narrowing potentially leads to lower speeds, but seemingly not enough to balance the increased risk of driving along the narrow roads. Yeah.
Yes.
You see that
Yeah.
sentence? I mean, there's nothing in that document which suggests that narrow lanes are inherently unsafe. It's a balance of it's a comparison between narrow lanes and wider lanes. Yeah.
Yes, it's a judgment like everything else.
It's a judgment like everything else, but there's
Yes.
nothing to say
Yeah.
that a lane width of 3.25 metres is in and of itself unsafe. That's not what the report is saying.
No, that's not what that report says, but it's
No. And if we look at what the...
Cut off.
Sorry.
I would expect the narrow lanes to be less safe, but no, that report doesn't say it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, I don't... I think the point that the report is making is it's better to have wider lanes than narrower lanes.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Which is fine. I mean, that's a DMRB standard. I don't think, you
Yeah.
know, that's fine. But there's nothing in that report to say that either narrower lanes are inherently unsafe such that they should not be used, is there?
No.
And there's nothing to give you any particular indication as to what an appropriate minimum width of a lane should be.
No, it's sort of general guidance. Yeah.
And even the terms of the guidance seemingly would suggest that the evidence base on which that judgment was made is not definitive.
Yes. But it is. Yeah.
I'm not trying to. I'm not.
Yeah,
You know. I'm
no,
not trying to suggest that there isn't this correlation that's been identified.
Yeah.
But it's always going to be a question of balancing different factors. And I mean, ultimately, CPPF's position, and I'm just going to put this to you, I know you don't agree with it, but just so that to give you the opportunity to comment on it, and that Mr. Johnson's going to explain his view in more detail, is that by way of the combination of measures, so the 40 mile per hour speed limit, the narrowing of lanes, signage, all of the different factors that would go into the final design of the road, you would create an environment in which, A, the 40 mile per hour speed limit was self-enforcing, and in which vehicles could travel up and down perfectly safely.
It would need to look at. Yeah. Yes. I'm not. Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate...
I just think that the number of departures that are needed to actually get there is an unrealistic assumption, and it would need to look at what the implications on the network of reducing the speed.
Now I want to look at your cross sections just briefly. So. And this comes back to your point. I think that this is a sort of curb-to-curb design and doesn't take into account, potential infrastructure outside the width of the curb.
We tried to fit it in as best we could, following what was there.
Yeah, but
we had the third dimension, which they don't. Yes.
So I just want to look at some of the assumptions that you've made, though, that this is a curb-to-curb design and would necessitate large amounts of ancillary infrastructure outside the width of the carriageway. So let's look at at cross-section and AA. And now I think, again, just in terms of approach, Ms. Lonergan.
So I know you're mid-play, but can you just give us a
Sorry.
chance to get to the...
Page 37.
Thank you.
In terms of the approach, we've agreed, haven't we, that you've identified challenges or objections
Yes.
to the scheme that's been put forward, and that's all very well as far as it goes. But the question is, could those challenges or objections be overcome so as to create a feasible scheme? Yeah, that's what the inspectors need
Yes.
to decide, right? Now, if we look at cross-section AA. And we're not going to go through all of these, but because there's quite a few. But the same points can be made about all of them. You say, I think the point of this is there's a few points that you want to make. Let's start with the verge. So you've got the red line, and you say standard verge not shown on CPPF plans. Yes. I mean, the point about that is you wouldn't necessarily need the standard verge that you've described there, would you? I mean, you've identified a standard verge. Just let me sorry that you answer that question.
Oh yes, it depends what's there. Yes.
Yeah. So you've assumed that you would need to re-provide an existing ditch that would affect the tree.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily the case.
You could put a pipe there or something. Yes, there's other things you could do. Well, I don't know if you could.
Yeah. Or you could just leave the ditch there.
It would be very close to the tyres for the lorry because there's no hard strip. Because one of the departures was actually losing the hard strip on the edge of the lane, on the edge of the carriageway.
Yeah.
So
okay.
the lorries are driving right up to the edge.
Well, I mean, you can see from your diagram that the carriage, the ditch doesn't start immediately adjacent to the carriageway, so you
It's
could
got
provide
about a metre or something. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's got about a metre or something, but that's
Yeah.
not for driving on. Yes. Yeah.
No, it's not for driving on, but it would provide a metre's worth of separation between the edge of the carriageway and the ditch.
And support to the curb. Yeah.
Yeah. So, insofar as your cross sections show the objections, that's an objection or a concern which can be readily overcome, isn't it, Mr. Lonergan?
Well, I think if you went through and did the whole design, yes, there's a number of things you'd change, and that'd be one of them that you'd look at. Yeah.
Well, exactly. So this cross section doesn't support the assertion that you make that the delivery of the CPPF alternative is unfeasible. It identifies challenges and objections that may need to be overcome, but they can be readily overcome.
No, the unfeasible bit is achieving the departures to allow it to be overcome. It's the cumulative impact of the departures that are needed.
Okay. Well, we've talked about that. We've talked about the cumulative effect. Other objections that you've identified in here which can be readily overcome. You've got notes at the top. The offset between existing large diameter trees and the edges of the running lanes are substantially reduced. I mean, we've done the topographical survey work in Mr. Woodfield's proof, and we've made assumptions about which trees you can retain, which trees you can lose, and all of that sort of stuff. And it's right, isn't it, that you can prune the lower branches of the trees.
The question was put on the basis of topographical work in Mr. Woodfield. We looked at the drawings, but I'm not sure on the basis of the question on topographical work.
Okay, maybe ignore the word topographical, but the trees that are going to be retained and that you're going to lose. For those trees that you're going to retain, you can prune the lower branches to maintain.
Then you've got, it's not only the lower branches, it's also the roots that need protecting.
Yeah, and Mr. Woodfield has identified in his evidence the potential impacts in that respect. And
right, I haven't looked at his evidence, but
no,
when we looked at it, we couldn't see that there was enough space, just using the highway design drawings and superimposing it on the topography.
Yeah, okay. And then I think the other issues that you identified in this cross-section we've already discussed, and
except perhaps it's worth looking at the highway bridge at the bottom, where
we're going to come to that.
As soon as any of the dimensions change.
I've got some questions about the high bridge. That's one of the cross-sections that I do want to ask you specifically about. Look, I'm conscious of the time. I want to ask you some key. So cross-section CC.
Yep.
You've identified an issue of super elevation, I think, on this particular cross-section.
Yes.
And you have identified that one would extend the carriageway to the right of that diagram. The red line extends, and if you were to provide the necessary
cant onto it, yeah.
amount of material, sorry, it's not a very eloquent way of putting it, you would essentially need to cut down a tree because the carriageway would extend into the tree. Is that?
Yes. Or,
Yeah.
well, you could put a retaining wall round it or something, but that wouldn't help the roots.
Okay.
Because they're underneath.
Again, I mean, again, this identifies an objection, but there are ways around the issue that you've identified, aren't there?
Yeah, yes.
And
then that was the idea of this, is to flag up the issues that are in the design.
yeah, which can be overcome.
Potentially, some can, yes.
Yeah. And what another way in which this objection which you've identified could be overcome would be, rather than to, as it were, fill the space on the right-hand side to increase the elevation of the road, you could cut the road because so as to provide a flatter elevation for the road. You could reduce the height of the road elevation on the right-hand side.
You mean you could dig down on the left-hand side so you'd reduce what's on the right?
Yeah.
It depends upon the longitudinal alignment of the road.
Well, and reduce the elevation on the right-hand side. Yeah?
If you're doing a full design, you'd play with the vertical alignment as well as the horizontal.
Again, so that's another way in which this objection could be overcome.
Potentially, but it'll still leave the widths as a problem. Yeah, but there are ways round, and as engineers will always try to.
Has engineering ways around all of these issues? Yes.
It's just the cost.
Well, okay, let's just.
implications,
Cost is going to be later, but even if you were to pursue all of these engineering solutions, Mr. Lonergan, on this scheme, we've got a £200 million busway. There is absolutely no way in the world that these engineering interventions are going to cost anything like £200 million.
Even with the bridge on the M11. Yeah.
Well, come on and look. I'm going to. Okay. Put aside the bridge on the
Yeah.
M11 as a matter of. It's right, isn't it, that these engineering interventions that we're going to look at wouldn't cost anything like £200 million?
No. But, it depends whether they'd actually provide the same benefits as well.
Yeah. Right. Okay, I'm not going to go through all these cross sections. We could make the same point, but let's look at the M11 bridge. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what your concern is that arrangement is just too constrained.
Yes.
To be acceptable. Can you please take up CD 936? Which is entitled A428 Cambourne to Cambridge Option Study Rectory Farm Bridge Options Report, 10th of June 2016.
CD, sorry, say again, that wasn't what I thought it was.
9-36. Tell me when you've opened that document.
Yep, just opening it.
Now, this is an options study by way of background for your benefit, so that you understand it, and take your time to. I don't want to be accused by Mr. Cameron if you're not familiar with this document that you're not familiar with it. So take your time to look at whatever you want by way of context. But just to try and be helpful, it was an option study that looked at various options for how the M11 bridge. The issues on the M11 bridge could be resolved. I don't know. Are you familiar with this study, or?
I'm not familiar with the study. I've been
Okay.
around the bridge, but I'm.
Okay. Well, I mean, as I say, I'm conscious of the time constraints on this cross-examination, but equally I don't want to be unfair to you. So let me just ask my questions, and if you need more time to look at it, then that's fine. But if you scroll down to PDF page 32, you can see various options that were considered by Atkins as a way of resolving the issues on the existing M11 bridge. Yeah.
Yes.
So we've got option 1, 32, reassigning the lanes. Option 2, widening the carriageway by reducing the south verge.
Yep.
Option 3, widening the bridge to the north. Option 4, widening the bridge to the south. Option 5A was building a new bridge for the busway and the pedestrian cycleway. And then option 5B was just building a new bridge for the pedestrian cycleway, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, so these are all ways in which the constraints on the M11 bridge could be overcome.
Yes.
Yeah. So far as CPPF has identified, it's, as it were, suggestion for how you could deliver their alternative on the existing bridge without any infrastructure interventions. It's right, isn't it, that insofar as that's problematic, and the council...
I think it's a bit optimistic with Lane with this.
Yeah.
Yes, so problematic,
Fine.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, look, let's assume that it's completely unacceptable and it's never going to fly. There are ways of...
Yeah, there are those three options at least of doing it, yes.
Exactly. So again, insofar as it's an objection which it's possible to overcome, yeah?
It is. It will have, certainly the new bridge or the extending the existing bridge will have an impact on national highways and potentially on the top of the slip roads. So it's quite significant on the M11. But yes, it can be overcome.
And if you look at...
It'd be expensive.
Sorry, just explain so I can... I don't understand. Just explain very briefly so I can ask Mr Johnston to deal with it.
It depends which way you take the bridge. If you take the bridge into the middle of the roundabout, it's relatively easy to do something. It depends on the alignments. It's relatively easy to do something on the approaches. If you extend the bridge outwards, and if you put a new bridge next to it, you change the tie-in between the top of the slip roads and the roundabout.
Right.
And as soon as you do that, you have to look at the gradients of the slip roads, and then you're potentially doing stuff to the actual M11 and the slip roads. And then I don't know if this bridge has. Presumably the new bridge wouldn't have a central pier, because National Highways definitely didn't like a central pier when we looked at our bridge further down.
Okay. Well, I'm instructed, and this is a note that's been handed me, that the slips are only on the southern side, so the bridge wouldn't affect.
Okay, so that's true. Yes, that's a fair point. So it doesn't matter for that. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. So
Yes,
does that?
I was
Do
getting
you
carried away.
have
No,
any
that's a
other?
fair point, but you still need to do the work. But yes, I agree. It just means the only work for the M11 would then be the effect of widening the bridge or putting a new bridge in.
So and then just explain that point so I'm clear about it.
So the effect on the M11 would be extending the abutments and potentially a new pier and the installation of the new deck.
So that'd be disruption to the operation of the motorway.
Yes.
Is that
Yeah.
a concern? Yeah. Okay.
And that's a fair point. Thank you.
And then, insofar as there's a cost, obviously, associated with building a new bridge, we've got some cost estimates on page 39 of the PDF.
Right.
And we see, I mean, you can see what the evidence says, but for example, option 5B, constructing a new pedestrian cycle bridge would be £2.2 million, which to you and me is a very significant amount of money, but by comparison with a £200 million scheme...
It would leave some change, yes.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, is it fair to say, Mr. Lonergan, that the constraints that have the CPPF alternative have thrown up for you and which have been reproduced in your cross-section could be overcome by pursuing one of the options in this report?
Yes, if money is spent, it can be done. And it will add additional time as well, some potentially additional time.
Okay, it's not going to add such additional time
No,
that would delay the delivery of the scheme overall.
It depends upon how far I suppose because we're not on the southern slip roads, depends how far we're allowed to work on that bridge in parallel with working on the Mattingley Road.
Sure, but you're
But if I've said 1 to 2 years for doing the scheme as it is, by doing this with the bridges, you'd probably add a year or something at most. So it wouldn't be a great amount.
And the busway is building. I mean, you're building a whole new bridge.
The busway duration from consent is 2 years to construct. So
yeah, but aren't you're building a new bridge, aren't you, over the M11?
Yes, within that. Yeah.
So I mean, if you can build entirely new bridge for the busway over the M11 within your 2-year construction period,
You'll probably take this one up to the full 2 years. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and then the final set of questions we've done safely. I just want to deal with sort of engineering feasibility and construction, which are the other sort of points that you've raised. So firstly, drainage. You deal with this at paragraph 3.7 of your report.
Right.
So this is in your rebuttal appendices.
I'm just going to get back to
On page 17.
Sorry, I'm just getting back to it, yeah. Page 17. Yep, just about there. Yep. 3.7.
Yeah, you've got heading potential engineering difficulties, and the first item is drainage. Now, the concern, as I understand it, about drainage, stepping back from the detail of your points just for a moment to understand the context, is that if you build essentially new tarmac, you're increasing runoff, which would otherwise soak away into the ground,
Yes.
and you've got to make provision for that runoff in some way or other.
Yes,
Is that right?
and current standards increase the amount you allow for, yes.
Now, it's obviously important to bear in mind in assessing the significance of this concern that the increased amount of tarmac carriageway that's proposed as part of the CPPF proposal is obviously significantly less than is proposed by way of the scheme, the order scheme, yeah?
Yes, because the length isn't as long. If you
Well,
talk the total quantum, you mean? What
Well, I'm
do you
talking
mean, the
about
width?
on any cross-section, obviously the order scheme is involving the delivery of 2 lanes of busway and a maintenance track. What the CPPF alternative would involve would essentially be adding a carriageway's worth of tarmac to an existing road.
Yes, so it'll end up being slightly end up being wider than the busway.
Well, no, because you've got you've obviously got the existing carriageway, so the additional
The additional would be less.
effect
Yeah.
would be less.
Yeah, and then the total is more. Yes. Yeah.
So so we're always comparing existing to proposed. The increase in runoff, I mean, by adding an additional length of carriageway, we're not talking about a very significant amount of increased runoff, are we?
No.
In general terms, no. So it's and we know, we've seen some of them in your cross sections, that there is a significant, put it this way, extensive ditch network in the vicinity of
Yes.
the A1303. Yeah.
Yes.
And it may well be, bearing in mind that the amount of increased runoff is not significant, and that there are already deep ditches adjacent to the road, that the existing ditch network is sufficient to accommodate.
Yes, it would need to be checked to see. Yes.
I mean, that's a feasible outcome, that you wouldn't need to provide any additional drainage at all because the existing ditch network is sufficient to accommodate the additional runoff.
Yes, we might just need to check what we're doing to filter it, and in terms of contaminating the ditches. But yes, in terms of the quantum of
But there's an engineering
Yeah.
solution to
Yeah.
that filtration issue, isn't there?
yes.
Now, let's suppose, reasonable worst case scenario, that more capacity is required in the way of drainage. There is the possibility of providing above ground suds in certain locations. That is a potential solution to the need for additional drainage, yeah?
Yes, and it's a recommendation from Cambridge.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, even it's the case, I don't know if you're aware, you wouldn't necessarily be aware of this, but I'll just ask you. I mean, CPPF indeed owns land at the bottom of the hill, immediately adjacent to the road. So, insofar as there was a need for above ground suds, that would be an appropriate location for them. Would you accept that?
Yes.
Potentially.
Use their own land. Yes.
So, I mean, you've referred, and it's right that CPPF have referred to the potential use of large-scale diameter pipes, and you've said, I think you've assumed that that would necessarily be required in your assessment.
Well, we'd looked at it as a solution. It's just
Yeah.
we've sort of got the scars of putting in larger diameter pipes that end up being much larger than we set out for.
Okay, but the need for large-scale diameter pipes would only arise where there isn't existing capacity to accommodate any increase in runoff, which we've already said is unlikely, and there isn't scope for above-ground suds.
Yes, it's be there for attenuation. Yeah.
Yeah, but both of those conditions would need to be fulfilled before there even became a need for
Well, it would
large
also
diameter
need to be.
pipes.
It also the design would also need to be done to current standards as well. So it'd be the change, the uplift within that. But yes,
But that's right, isn't it? So
Yeah.
so it's only in that scenario that you'd even begin to look at large diameter pipes as a potential mitigation. Yeah.
yeah, the design hasn't been done.
No, exactly. But in those circumstances where the additional runoff was of such significance that you needed to provide additional drainage and it was not possible to provide suds, there would be nothing objectionable in principle in limited locations or to the extent that it was
No, it just
necessary
needs-
in providing oversized drainage pipes.
Yeah, just needs excavations and
Yeah.
it's just
And that-
additional work.
So in terms of the drainage concerns that you've raised, they're readily overcome, aren't they?
I think the issue was that they weren't included within the CPPF design. so-
Fine. But now we understand what the purpose of the CPPF design is and what judgment the inspectors need to make. You're not suggesting that drainage is a matter which would prevent the CPPF alternative?
No,
No.
it's just a thing that needs to be looked at.
Yeah. Which we say applicant should have looked at and hasn't. But that's not a question. I'm going to.
And we wouldn't at the level that we looked at the design within the option selection.
Exactly. I'll make a note of that. Utilities. I mean, can I put it in this same way? We can go through the whole rigmarole, but it's right, isn't it, that there are engineering solutions to the provision of utilities
Yes,
along
it's
this
just
corridor.
a cost and a programme impact. Yes,
A
it
cost and
happens
a
up and down the country. Yeah,
Exactly.
but it would need looking at. It's another thing that.
Yeah,
hasn't
but it's
been
not
looked at.
something that would prevent you implementing the CPPF alternative from an engineering perspective.
Not with any of the utilities I'm aware of, but it would need a check. There are solutions to it. It's just something else that needs looking at to make the CPPF.
And there is not. I mean, are there any solution, any potential utilities issues that could not be overcome by way of an engineering solution?
To be honest, I've only had a quick look at the utilities and I couldn't see any. But
No. Thank you. Now, finally, disruption. Now, the disruption. There would obviously be some disruption during construction. I mean, there's no two ways.
I think there'd be significant disruption during construction.
Well, yeah, okay. We'll look at that. It's right, isn't it, that the busway could be built in sections. So this is not a case in which you are going to be closing the entirety of this stretch of road on a permanent basis
No.
to enable the scheme to be built. You could maintain operation of the road, albeit disrupted, during the majority, if not all, of the...
Yes, it would be either traffic lights or it would be lane closures. Yeah,
Yeah.
At the edge. Not lane
Yeah.
closures, but verge closures.
And because you would be extending the width of the carriageway, as it were, to provide the bus lane, you would have scope to maintain 2 lanes of traffic for at least some of the construction period.
Need to have a look at the safety zones around the work sites.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that you can do that all the way through. And the other thing is the condition of the existing road and what needs to be done to that.
Yeah, but there's scope. There's scope for extending the carriageway and maintaining 2 lanes of traffic, subject to those constraints that you've identified.
And I think working around the constraints would make the construction programme longer.
Yeah.
Would increase the duration.
Yeah, I don't think there's any dispute in principle
Yeah.
that could happen. But it's right in principle, and you'd need to look at the extent to which, existing carriageway surfacing, exactly how you'd build it. That would all be sort of flushed out in the detailed design
Yes.
process and
Where the
construction
utilities
management.
are, what needs moving first, drainage and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And there may be periods, again, CPPF would accept there may be periods in which it wasn't possible to maintain 2 lanes of traffic, but it's certainly feasible that for at least some, if not most of the period, you could maintain 2 lanes of traffic all the way along the road.
Yes, it depends upon how long a duration the council's happy to have the roadworks on, but yes.
And insofar as you're doing works to the existing carriageway and this road, I mean, the work gives you the opportunity to install new pavement, doesn't it?
I think you'd end up replacing everything, to be honest, looking at it.
Exactly.
So you'd end up working all the way across, and it would...
Yeah, I mean, I think that is CPPF's understanding, that you'd be basically building a new carriageway. You've identified, I think, concerns about potential, I'm going to use the wrong technical term, rutting or damage to the carriageway. Yeah. But if you were rebuilding the carriageway in its entirety, it would give you the opportunity to build the carriageway to the very highest standards, wouldn't it, in terms of pavement condition?
Yes, it's just more disruptive than tacking on a lane on the side,
yeah.
A bus lane on the side.
Yeah, in principle is accepted. But even bearing in mind the sort of length and disruption that you've talked about, if you were going to rebuild the entirety of the pavement of the carriageway and all of those other potential challenges that you foresee, it's right, isn't it, that the construction of the scheme would certainly not be any longer than the busway?
No, I think it'd be about the same, I think, by the time it's finished. On the other hand, the busway doesn't actually have any impact on the Mattingley on that road, so...
And the construction cost, we've already talked about this, but the construction costs are going to be, on any view, very considerably less.
Yes, but equally the start date will be later because the process hasn't started.
Well,
thinking about what the gentleman was saying yesterday.
That. Yeah, sorry.
You still need to go through and get the TWAO or whatever approvals would be needed before he could start.
Well, I don't know. You wouldn't need it. I mean, that's entirely the point. Is that you wouldn't need a TW. This is a scheme which is delivered within the existing highway.
I'm not sure all the land.
Well, it is.
It would need to be checked. I'm not sure all the land actually belongs to the highway authority.
Okay. Well,
but that's not really my field. But that's a key part of it.
It's a matter of the witness counter system.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Actually, whilst there's a pause there, Mr. Parker, we've almost come up to an hour since we started.
I'm just checking whether there are any more questions I want to ask.
Thank you.
Final point, Mr. Long. It may be that you're not able to answer this, but let me try. Yeah. And if you can't, then tell me. As we understand the procurement process for the busway, the contract for the construction of the busway is to be let until 2031. Now, right. that would suggest to us, and again, tell me if you don't know or we don't understand the position, that the likely construction period for the busway is going to be much longer than, I think you've estimated. How you estimated?
24 months, 2 years is what we've said from consent. Sorry,
yeah.
from starting. 2 years is in the evidence. 2 years is in the evidence.
So are you able to assist with why the procurement process would have a contract being let to 27? Okay. Mr. Lonergan, those were all the questions I had
Thank
for
you.
you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Thank you, Mr. Lonergan. We've got a few questions, myself and Mr. Legg. I'll start off. Apologies, these aren't necessarily in any particular order. If I could start off, Mr. Lonergan, and take you to your proof, paragraph 5.16.3a. Hopefully I've got it right, and I'm not reading from the wrong document. This is just something to clarify. So it's on page 23 of the paper copy.
No, that'll do.
It's under the heading of temporary and permanent land required.
Hang on, just. Sorry, just getting to it. I remember the section, I just need to look at the text. Yep, I'm there. 5.15.
So 5.16.3, paragraph A.
Yep, yes.
And that's just talking about the route that
Yes.
at the western end of the order, where it goes along
Yes.
Stirling Way. There's a reference there that it follows the path of a disused Oxford to Cambridge railway between existing fence lines.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering,
Am I not correct with that?
well, that's what I'm asking. Is that right? And my subsequent question was going to be: does any part of the route go along a former railway or tramway?
That's the only bit I would think. I have to admit, I thought it was. But,
Okay. Well,
we'll tell you. In 5
that's something
minutes.
we can.
So we can check, and I think Mr. Baker will be able to deal with that. when
Yes.
we give the
Okay.
notes.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a look myself. There seems to be hard standing there.
There is. It goes between two houses.
Yeah.
There's the.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my understanding when I was there.
In that case, if
A bit that might be, to be honest, but we shall double check.
if I can just go back to during evidence in chief, and I think it was also alluded to in some of your answers or some of the questions by Mr. Parker, was about how you work within a design team. And I just wanted to ask how sort of particular elements of the design were influenced by other members of the design team, particularly around issues such as sort of ecology, heritage, landscape, visual
The design,
effects.
the design team includes all those people in it. So it's not just the highways design and the construction and the planning. It includes ecology, environment, drainage, utilities.
So what I'm
multitude.
what I'm trying to understand, and please direct me to particular evidence that shows it, is how going from a sort of a, for want of a better expression, a sort of a pure engineering solution for the proposed busway, and I'm thinking particularly for the off-road section between Grange Road and Madingley Mulch. What sort of things were influenced where that perhaps pure engineering approach would have been changed by comments from other members of the team?
Right, so proximity to residents, for instance, as you come to the west of the road into the north end of Coton, habitats, drainage, existing watercourses, rights of way, footpaths, bridleways. Basically, we put the alignment on. We put the original alignment on the drawings, then we work through from one end to the other, and it's a bit like the other things. It's iterative, and we go through with all the team members, and we go through looking at all the environmental things, the drainage, the utilities, how it can be built, where a compound can go. So all of the different disciplines input into producing the actual drawings, and then the drawings turn into the red line boundary, the permanent and temporary land take drawings.
Uh,
And we are permanently moving things up and down, I know, avoiding bats and all the rest of it.
And there may well be issues that perhaps we come to when we look at sort of more specific parts of the scheme. But it is, if in order for me to sort of understand what, as I say, what those changes are, and again, it may well be in the documentation. Can you point me to? Is there a particular document where I could see perhaps where, for example, the explanation of the alignment moving to avoid or to make it further away from residential
There were
properties?
certainly, I'd have to go and dig up the document reference. There were alternative alignments looked at north of Coton in terms of trying to move things north away from the residences in Coton and then south away from the people along the top of the hill. And there are some options that were looked at, so it will be within the options reports, but I'd have to go and dig up some references.
I think Mr. Baker may be the right
Yes,
person
okay,
to
I
deal
would
with
think
this.
so.
He's dealing with options.
Yeah. But a lot of it during the design, once we start, isn't really recorded as we go through. We just go through trying to refine it and address the concerns.
Okay, thank you. And that is obviously something I'll ask Mr. Baker in that case. When just when myself and Mr. Clegg were having a look at some of the areas in the vicinity of the proposed route, one of the locations we had a look at was from Cromley Farm, which where Mr. Sadler showed us some business units, and we had a look over some open fields and countryside. From there, we got a view where we could see. To the west, there was some residential properties which sort of, for want of a better expression, projected further south than Cromley Farm, and to the east we could see a number of trees along a field boundary. Can you just help me just to explain exactly how the busway between those points and beyond the residential property would be? Would that be at grade? Would it be slightly set down, slightly set up? And please refer me to a drawing if that's,
Yes, it'd be worth
helpful.
Be worth looking at the drawings. Most of the busways at grade, it does drop down slightly, but just give us a minute to go and find the place.
So I'm thinking it's probably going to be on drawing 11, I think. And I was going to look at the deemed planning drawings, although if you think a different drawing is
What
more
number's that?
appropriate. Beg your pardon?
I was just looking for the reference to dig it up.
We're talking about the proposed site plan, Mr. Langdon. She's telling me about.
I think I'm in the same role as Mr. Clegg. The site plan,
Yeah.
sheet 11.
I think essentially, Mr. Langdon, what we're wondering is if you were at the back of those properties which project south from Paddington Road, and you were looking south where the land falls, what would you see?
Ah, that's what I wanted. Thanks very much.
I think, Mr. Saunders, you don't talk to him, but
Yeah.
we all know what was said. So I think you've just been handed a copy of the site plan.
Yes, yeah.
So it would be
Which sheet are you on, Mr. Langdon?
002011.
Yeah,
Sheet 11.
Sheet 11. Yes, yes, sheet 11.
That's
But
fine.
we are all on the same page. Yes,
So you-
it's a bit faint there, but you can see Cromley Farm and a series of buildings to the south of there, and then on the other side, where actually it's got a dotted line saying it's continuation, there's a series of residential properties with gardens extending down. Most of the properties are at the Maddeney Road end, but there's a property also at the south end there. So as Mr. Clegg said, yeah, I guess if you if you're standing at the garden boundary, what would you
Directly
see?
south, it's pretty well level, and then as you come across, I'm just trying to work out with the hatchings again. It's slightly raised at the extreme right-hand side, but there is planting on the northern edge, which shields the shrub planting, which shields the busway. So you'd effectively see the line of shrubs and planting.
And
So you wouldn't see the busway, but you would be able to see the top of the bus.
And again, this is where perhaps sometimes I struggle with the notation on drawings. Am I right in thinking the orange arrows are indicating a cutting, and the green arrows indicating an embankment? So
We don't always do it that way. I was looking. I can see the tadpoles for the hatchments for the embankment at the right-hand side. Yeah, it depends which way the sort of earthworks cutting the hatchments. The wider end is always at the top, and you can.
So I don't. If you like to, there is a cross section.
Well, that's what we need.
We're going to the works and land plans, and we're going for longitudinal sections as you get towards the back, and it's got longitudinal sections for proposed works, and it's sheet number 11 of 17. Yeah, so it's the same sheet number as before, so that the two marry up. And that is a longitudinal section. And if somebody was offering to give Mr.
Yes.
Lonergan something, but we need to know what it is, and we can't.
That'll do.
We're not, or what of is the point?
The same drawing number, hopefully.
Well, no, because it looked to me as though it was all in green rather than white. So I'd rather you were not past documents.
No.
But, yep. Well,
11 of 17.
I don't think it's in that printing.
There's nothing that's gone
No.
on.
Just to make sure I've got.
Have we not given you the works plans?
We haven't got. We've got.
It's on the website.
That printout's got the plans, not the sections.
Oh,
Okay. Right, do you want to
It's okay. I think I'm.
We can give you the reference.
What is it there?
Yeah. So. Hang on.
CD 11202,
Thank you.
and within that, the sheet that Mr. Cameron took you to is number 11 of 17, and you'll get that on PDF page 12. Shows work number 7. You'll see that underneath.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh, sorry. If you want to see that, that gives you the cross section, and the reference so that you can join the two together is if you look at the works and land plans, which I'll give you CD 11201, and you go within that document again to sheet 11 of 17, which is on PDF page 13. It's probably worth going there first, and then also you can ask your question, just so you're clear where I'm looking at. If you're on CD, the CD reference I just gave you for the works and land plans 11201.
Yep.
Go first within that PDF page 13. You'll see sheet number 11 of 17. I'll just wait till you're there.
Yes.
And then you'll see the red, the
Yep.
whole pink. You'll see work number 7, so you're clear what you're looking at
Yep.
there. And then go from that to the longitudinal sections, just to join the two together.
And just to make sure I'm reading this correctly, so on the left, on the section, the left hand of the page is west and the right hand is east, is that correct? I think it is.
It should be looking up Chowbridge normally, but you can tell by the section.
Sorry?
Well, not, because it's a section across. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. West is
Okay.
left.
That's how it should be, because we should be looking up chainage.
Yeah.
Well, that's the convention.
So I think I've now got the drawing. So sorry, Mr. Long, just going back. If I'm correct in recalling what you said, is you would see some planting, but not the carriageway.
The aim is to hide the actual busway.
And when you say the aim was to hide the busway, why? What was the reason for that?
Well, I suppose it's landscape enhancement, and what we're tending to hide the busway across there. Just I don't know what we're supposed to do, to be honest. So, just to minimise the visual intrusion.
So you're saying that's just going back to my question about the design team. Is this something where somebody on the design team said we need it lower here, or is it more of an engineering thing that in order to get the levels you were going down?
No, I think in this case it's an environmental reason. It's not engineering. It basically follows ground level, and then we move it up and down to suit the environment in this area.
Okay.
And that's really to avoid the view for either Coton or from top of the hill.
Am I right in thinking that part of it's on an embankment side?
Yes, towards the right hand side.
Yeah. And that's indicated on the section by the difference between the green and red lines.
Can you just tell me which drawing you're on for the section? Because I've got the.
The one that Mr. Henderson took us to first.
Are you in the electronic dots?
Yeah.
So CD is the longitudinal section, CD
Yes.
11202.
Sorry, it was the next one's down. Yep.
PDF page 12 of 18, work number 7.
And we've got a note that says the surface of the existing grounds marked by the red line.
That's conventionally how we do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Upper surface of busway, the green line.
Yes.
And as you look at the section on the screen, that's on the left hand side, the green line's higher up, so presumably that's where the embankment runs.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not a terribly large one.
No. Would there be any structure either there or elsewhere along that stretch that would be above the carriageway level?
No.
No, there's no lighting columns or.
The lighting is certainly along the track is at ground level, and I cannot remember temporarily. I don't believe there is lighting along there. I shall check. But I don't believe there is lighting along there.
Right.
I'm sure there isn't.
Okay.
I'll double check and I'll come back to you.
Yeah, thanks.
I've got some more questions for Mr. Longer, but and again, this might be my issue with reading plans. I'm just going to ask, perhaps over lunch, if someone could just clarify. So, as I see it, section for work number 7 shows that the surface of the existing ground is lower than the line corresponding with the upper surface of the busway. I'm wondering whether I'm misreading, because that says continuation sheet 10. So that looks actually like there's an embankment rather than a cutting. But on the drawing it says it's a cutting. So can I just leave that as a clarification to sort out? So it's quite possible I've read the section the wrong way around, or I've got my plan the wrong way around. On the drawings, earthwork cuttings are indicated, I think Mr. Lonergan called them tadpoles, which is a helpful
We normally call them
in orange,
attachments.
and an embankment is shown in green. And in the vicinity of those properties, which is at the on the left-hand side of the drawing, there's some little orange tadpoles, which would appear to show a cutting. Yet on the section, it says surface of existing ground appears to be lower than the line of the busway, which would appear to
We'll
indicate
check Evelyn.
an embankment. Now, I'll just leave that because I've quite possibly read the plans wrong, but somebody can come back to me on that.
We'll come back to that. We don't always do it quite as simply as that, yes.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Logan. Yeah, actually, Mr. Clegg just asked you about lighting. Could you just clarify? Yeah, what are the proposals for lighting along the off-road section? Is the aim that any of the busway would be lit, or would there be additional lighting at junctions, or is it all going to be unlit?
I'm just having a complete brain fade on that at the moment. I don't believe it. I don't believe it is lit except at the junctions, but I shall check. We've had long discussions, and I can't remember where it ended up.
Well, if Mr. Lonergan's not sure, we might pass that on to Mr. Baker.
Yes, I'm sure he'll. Yeah.
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 Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Clegg.
No, that's fine.
And in terms of the optical guidance, does it make any difference as to whether a carriageway is lit or unlit for that to function?
I don't believe it does. I think the lights are on the bus, because otherwise, if the street lamps failed, we'd close the.
So it relies on
Yeah.
the headlights of,
Yes.
of the bus. Okay, thank you. Again, one of the things, just looking at the drawings, in the vicinity, when we went on our site visit, we had a look at some of the farmland, particularly from the vantage point from Cromley Farm. We also looked at some of the farmland from the road opposite Coton Orchard. We also had a look at Coton Orchard. What proposals are there so that those who are sort of farming or managing the land can get from one side to the other? Is the proposal there's going to be some crossings which
Yes.
aren't on there? And if so,
There are some actually shown on the drawings there.
are there?
How are they shown, Mr. Lonergan?
Blue. There's some blue stripes that are come across.
Is it the accommodation works?
Yes,
So is that what accommodation works means?
that's what those accommodation works are. Yes, it gets you from one side to the other. Yeah.
Are they there in all cases for all occupiers of existing land which would be severed?
There's been discussion. Sorry.
Mr. Franklin deals with
Yeah.
impact on users. He's the surveyor.
He's the best person to ask.
He's the best person to ask. I mean, Mr. Lonergan can help on what's the design and what's going to be built,
Yes.
but the arrangements, Mr. Franklin.
Yes.
Okay,
it's
thank you.
discussions, yeah.
But in that case, can you just give us an idea as to what that will actually look like? So if one was standing on the emergency access track near a blue accommodation works, what would we see?
It's basically going to be a tarmac or a concrete track that comes perpendicular across from fence line to fence line with a gate at either side.
So when you say gate outside, just to be clear, that the gate would be on the field side,
Yes.
not obviously the busway side.
Yeah.
And would there be any other enclosures between? And actually, in terms of the gate, would that be at the outside of the works, or would that be?
I would expect it to be, and at the moment there isn't anything on the verge between the busway and the maintenance track.
So, if I understand correctly, so if I were to wander through the field towards those accommodation works, I'd come to a gate, and then once I'd opened the gate, there'd be no more enclosure between there
Same
until
as crossing the railway.
I'd cross the other side of the thing. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
Sir, if you've got any particular concerns, if we can have notice of them, then we can make sure Mr. Franklin addresses them. But he deals with
Yes.
impact on landowners' ability to farm, getting across he deals with the orchard, Mr. and Mrs. Sadler's land, and
Yes.
so on.
Yeah. Well, perhaps to anticipate a question that I would have, it'd be helpful to understand, what arrangements have been put in place for those land users, and I'm sure there's others other than just the farmer and the orchard we're talking about. In terms of that, so perhaps that would be very helpful if Mr. Franklin can address that in his. Well, and I think it's a general thing.
Goes all the way along, to be honest.
I think any landowner who will find that if the busway were constructed, that actually their holding or their operation would effectively be on both sides of the busway, what the arrangements would be.
Mr. Franklin is the witness. He deals with severance. He deals with all those points and in relation to specific owners along the route.
Thank you. And again, just another question about, because I talk about gates and fencing. Are there proposals for any sort of fencing or barriers along the route of the busway on the off, and I'm talking about the off-road section? So, for example, if it's on a, and I understand that the Binbrook Bridge would obviously have a parapet and something to the side, but in terms of areas where there's an embankment, is there a proposal for any armed code barriers or anything like that, or fences?
On the east side of the M11 is the only place I can think of, because there's a bit of an embankment there. On the west side is in Cuttings. There's very little, to be honest. The busway virtually follows ground level.
And again, just for the avoidance of doubt, so in terms of I think it's already explained the relationship between the emergency access and maintenance road, which would also be used by pedestrians and cyclists. That in terms of safety measures, my understanding is the main safety measure is the separation between that. There isn't going to be a fence or a wall to prevent people.
And the embankment for the M11 bridges on both sides.
Well, Mr. Lonergan, are we right in thinking that at the eastern end of the busway, when it gets near to Grange Road, there isn't separation?
Sorry, there is round the back of the Clare Hall, yes. Sorry.
Between the maintenance track and the busway? Looking at, for example, sheet 17.
Where the drainage comes along on the inside of the curve, or where are you thinking?
From Grange Road, the emergency access and maintenance road appears to be hard up against the busway carriageway, with quite a small verge all the way over.
There's a smaller verge, but there is a verge.
But is there a verge actually? It's a bit difficult to see even on these large plans.
We've got some cross sections that we can use.
Right. So you're saying that there is always something, even if it's very small in some places?
There's always something between the two.
If you just hold that in mind, then go back to think about where we were before on sheets, I think it was 10 and 11 over at Cotton. I think there, that track is running on the south side of the busway. Here it's on the north side.
Yes.
That implies that active users have to cross the busway. Is that right?
It's on the south. It's on the south side. It's principally on the south side at that point, coming along. It changes. Yes, it changes at the Science Park. I think it does change at the Science Park. So it comes along to Allenadale Road on the south side, and then they're on Charles Babbage, and then the actual maintenance track restarts south of footpath 3931 on drawing 16, and then it's on the north side. And in terms of active travel, you come off of Charles Babbage and you can come down. There's existing footpaths and bridleways that get you down along that ditch and then join the maintenance track.
Yeah. Was there a particular reason for switching sides?
I don't Well, except for the fact that it puts the when people come out of Clare Hall, they're directly on the access track rather than the other side. Certainly, it gives us a bit more space between the busway and Clare Hall.
Yes.
And Mr. Lonergan, just
And
on
it's
the,
sort of tidier, I suppose, at that point. But no, there's no principal reason.
just on the access track, from what I can see, the distance from the busway until you get past on the other side of the M11 is, I'd say, it's certainly closer to the busway than it is from more or less when it starts to go through Coton Orchard. Why is there a difference in the distance between?
It's the
two?
drainage. It's basically that there's a drainage run, drainage swales which start to the west of the pond, Basin 05. So where there's a swale, it's gone. In this case, it's gone between. It generally goes, and certainly in this case, it goes between the maintenance track and the busway, and that carries on across the Cambridge Road.
And bear in mind, I think the questions that Mr. Parker was asking you about, what I guess the land take. So does that swale have to go on either side of the carriageway for any particular reason, and separate it from the maintenance track?
But they normally go hard up against the roadway. Otherwise, we'd have to collect the water and pipe it. And it seemed a neater solution just to push the access track back. And if we put the swale on the other side, we'd still have the same land take, to be honest. And we've got planting on the other on both sides on the other side towards the fence line on both sides.
So just so I understand that, so even if you did move the drainage ditch to the other side of the walkway,
The footprint would still be the same.
sorry, a walkway maintenance, you'd still need the same amount of space
Yes.
to put in. Thank you. Thank you. If I can just come now to junctions where the proposed busway is going to interface with other carriageways, either where the buses would sort of rejoin the existing road network, or where the existing road network would cross. What measures are in place to effectively stop, deter, prevent vehicles which shouldn't be on the busway from using the busway?
It's essentially AMPR controlled, and then it'll be monitored. If there isn't a gate, there were going to be gates, there aren't gates on it. But to be honest, that's a better question for Mr. Baker. But
Okay. I mean, yeah, by all means...
but there were gates on it, but there aren't at the moment. It's AMPR
Right.
controlled.
And when you say AMPR controlled, would that mean...
So it'll be what? It'll be monitored for vehicles that are entering it.
And is that sort of active real-time monitoring? Or, I mean, if I were to be foolish and drive my car along it, would a policeman meet me at the other end, or would I just get a ticket through the post in 2 weeks' time? What does that...
That's a question. I think that's a question for Mr. Baker, to be honest.
It's another
I'm not sure I can
Mr.
answer that
Bacon
one.
question. Mr. Baker question. Okay. Mr. Baker question. Thank you. I mean, again,
Assume that's, yeah.
and I'm sure Mr. Cameron's making notes of these his examination in chief of Mr. Baker.
Mr. Baker is as well, because he's sitting at the back.
Yeah. I think I'm almost done there. Sorry, and just final one about, if I've understood correctly, that there's not going to be barriers or gates or anything. In your evidence, you've referred to safety audits, which, if I understand correctly, sort of happen a bit further down the line at the detailed design stage.
Yes, they'll happen right the way through the design stage. Yes.
Is a safety audit the sort of thing that might come back and say, you've got to stick a fence here or a gate here?
Yes, but that's part of the reason of having the audit. Yes, it reviews the design and it goes back and they go back into it with a sort of clean sheet, effectively.
Right. And what processes are in place sort of within your within the sort of design to sort of take account of those? So you mentioned before how the design was influenced by a range of professionals. If the safety audit came back with a particular feature, I just use the offence as an example, that perhaps
That would feed back in the same way as more landscaping or more drainage into the scheme.
I was going to say, if there's effect on whether it's residential amenity, ecology, heritage,
Yes.
how would that be dealt with?
That all feeds back into the design, except in the term the GCP would be involved in that as well. But all these things feed back in as we find other constraints or other things that have to be addressed.
And
It's part of a sort of CDM and, well, the ROGS is almost CSM, which is railway. But yes, as we go through, we do the progressive checks
yeah,
and we put in the
I think
controls.
where I'm getting to is, I think with your explanation, and I'm sure with some further information provided throughout the inquiry, and getting a good picture about what the physical sort of appearance and effect of the busway is going to be. It's just understanding whether some principles which have been sort of established, such as no enclosures, whether that might actually change at a later date as a result of another thing.
It could. It's changed once already because there were gates earlier on and there aren't now. So this will be reviewed as we go through.
And again, whilst I'm not making any sort of prejudgments about anything, part of the panel's report to the Secretary of State will have a look at the potential sort of planning conditions. So which I must admit I haven't looked at in detail, but I'm waiting to see the statement of common ground, which will enlighten me on that point. Is just again trying to understand whether there's any particular sort of principles that perhaps need to be followed through in planning conditions, just to make sure that, again, for the sake of argument, if you're if the applicant is presenting the scheme to say part of the reason why the applicant thinks this is acceptable is because it's open and unenclosed, obviously to make sure that there's some control, that if somebody then says, actually, no, we need to put a big fence along here for whatever reason. Okay, that's understood. Thank you for that. And I think that was... I understand that Claire Hall will probably be asking some questions later on. I've got some more detailed questions there, but I'll leave those until that time. So, Mr. Clare.
And we didn't lead the evidence on the Clare Hall part. I'll ask Mr. Lonergan about it then. Obviously, to reassure Mr. Parker, I won't go back on any CPPF points.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron.
We're nearly there, Mr. Lonergan. I just want to seek clarification on a couple of things, please. The first concerns the effect on public rights of way, and I've got 2 points. I just want to two parts of the proof. The first is on page 14.
It's coming up.
And your heading's actually the previous page, but it talks about effective rights of way, and then it refers to 3 in subparagraphs B to D.
Yes.
And then if you go forward in your proof please, to page 26, where there's reference to rights of way again. And the ones that you mentioned on page 14 are all carried forward and mentioned there. But in addition is footpath 6617, which I don't think appears earlier.
Right.
And there's reference there. We can see this on sheet 6 of the site plans, to a new footbridge, removing the current need to cross the A4 to 8. And
I think it's existing.
Well, yes, that's exactly what I thought I'd seen.
Apologies, you're right.
I just want to be absolutely certain. There is an existing bridge,
Yes.
because the bridges you're proposing are bridges at the M11 in Binbrook.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
all, isn't it?
Yes.
So there's no change in the arrangements across the A428?
No.
That's what I thought. And then finally, you'll be glad to hear, I just wanted to go to the page 24 and the effect on the potential EWR on the line thereof. Now, I understand from your introduction that you're involved in that project,
Yes.
and I just wondered if you could say, I know you give us an overview of the ongoing discussions with EWR. It's something that the Secretary of State particularly wishes to be addressed on. And I know EWR have put in a statement, they're not intending to appear, but they've suggested a safeguarding condition in terms of the land that they may be interested in. I just wondered if there's anything you could say in a little bit more detail about the engineering arrangements that
Yes, so
could need to be made, and whereabouts that would take place.
right. So it's on the. I'm not sure it's actually on these plans. It's on the eastern end of Bourne Airfield, and
It's the eastern end of the airfield.
and the East West Rail will be tunnelled underneath both the 428 and the busway.
Right. So,
And I'm probably saying what I shouldn't, but
so the latest
discussions were.
the latest thinking is a tunnel, is it?
The latest thing is a bored tunnel.
Right.
Though we may have only told people about a cut and cover tunnel,
Yes.
but at the moment it's likely to be a bored tunnel because of national highways.
Yes.
So the only impact on East West Rail will be local monitoring in case there was
So it would go under the A428.
You go under the 428 and under the busway. So the only impact would be local monitoring. If it was a cut and cover construction,
Yes.
we'd build the tunnel hard up against either side of the busway, put a temporary diversion in, and then run the busway and the temporary diversion, build the bit that's missing and put it back on.
And prior
But
to
at
that point, the railway's running, I think, parallel to the A428, roughly.
It comes parallel as it comes from the west,
Yes.
and then it crosses.
Then it crosses over.
over. But in terms of the busway, it's running underneath and it's a bored tunnel, so the only impact
Yes.
is monitoring.
And it's generally heading, I think, southeast, isn't it, towards
Yes.
Cambridge?
Yeah.
So no other point of impact on any part of the route. It's that one point.
It's just that one point where it goes underneath it. And as long as we stick to a bored tunnel, then there's no effect at all.
Yeah. Good.
And if there isn't, it would just be a temporary diversion. It would be, and then
Yes.
it would be reinstated.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think that's the end of our questions. We are going to have a break for lunch before I invite Mr. Cameron to ask you any questions that he might have in re-examination. Just before we break, can I just in terms of the questions this morning about which talked about the Cambourne Greenway, can I just ask both Mr. Parker and Mr. Cameron, just which is the best documents to see the actual route that is proposed? I mean, I've been looking at the outline business case, which has various plans in. You don't have to do it instantly. Could somebody just give me a core document reference or references, just so I can see exactly where this greenway's going to go, start, finish?
It's in the 7 series. I opened it while we were discussing it. I think.
Well, as I say, I've got the outline business case open, but is that the best document to look at, or is there a better one? Or better ones?
Are you looking at? Just trying to find it now. It's 735, is it? That's the 735 is the local cycling, walking and infrastructure plan, but there is actually a document on the Greenway.
Don't answer now. Perhaps when we resume after lunch,
Well, we'll let you know.
Someone just give me the best thing to look at. It's just because obviously the outline business case has got all sorts of different diagrams. It'd be really helpful just to to understand that. So thank you very much. Right, well I make it 4 minutes past 1. We'll adjourn now and we'll resume at 5 minutes past 2 when I'll ask Mr. Cameron whether he's got any questions to ask Mr. Lonergan in re-examination.
Which I do have. So means Mr. Lonergan has to have lunch on his own. Look forward to that.
Thank you very much.